curious to see what the delay time is and everything on my channel as far as like when it starts. This is the
we've just gone live. We've just gone live. I didn't warn you. Good evening, all. This is it's time for some midweek geek. We are testing something out tonight. There's a new feature in Streamyard that allows streams to be shared to various channels. So this is also being streamed on Elfbait's channel as well. No idea what just say about the delay. No idea what the delay is going to be like. How to be, but hopefully it might get some of. I think Elfbait, a lot of your subscribers are subscribers here as well at the moment.
Yeah.
So yeah.
Although I'm curious if comments from mine will make it through to yours.
Oh, we'll have to find out.
Let's try right now.
Yeah, test it out.
We're doing recursion. We're gonna find out. You know, if it's like
I'm on the Chat for Geeks channel. I'm not seeing anything. Did you post it, Mage?
It showed up.
Yeah, it's coming through.
Yeah,
that's awesome.
Yes,
I'm not seeing it on my end. But
power to dominate the stream world.
You're not seeing anything.
Elfbait, what is best in life?
Chicken fingers.
Fish
and chips.
If they're breaded and you can eat. Sorry.
As you can see, I am joined tonight by Elfbait, Dark Knight of Hibernia, Major's Musings, and Omanal. And the point of tonight's stream is we're going to just mop up those remaining classes we haven't discussed in previous weeks. 15 people are in chat now, so it does seem the synchronization issues, the fact that your clocks have changed and ours haven't yet here in Britain.
Get on that, man.
Ours will be in the 26th, I think, if I remember correctly.
But going to say hello to chat. We've got Echo, we got Halakar, we got RW Bishop, General Nut, and there's Grumpy Old Slan, Daniel Kearney, Crafting Gamer, and Kabuki Kid. So hello to everybody who's chimed in so far. Has anybody had any games recently? I'll start. Shall I? I'll start.
Yeah, you start.
I'll start. Thursday night was called off last week in Saxius's game because of work and getting home from work issues due to snow, because we're rubbish with snow in this country. Saturday played a bit of MERP. I introduced a bit of an investigative scenario into our MERP game, and it went rather well. They haven't had combat now for 3 sessions and don't seem to be too perturbed by it, which is quite good. They might well be getting some combat next session, but we shall see what happens.
Is it
and Monday
of Farmer Maggot's cabbages?
Oh no, this was something particularly nasty happening at Sarn Ford, and they're trying to get to the bottom of it.
Cool.
But that was quite a good session, and I'm afraid I nearly fell asleep at the game on Monday. I've had to do a few extra hours at the moment at work due to one of my colleagues having a bereavement. So if I fall asleep on stream tonight, you'll understand exactly why.
Don't worry, we'll just blame Sean. We'll just blame Sean. He cast a sleep spell on you. It's all good.
It's funny you joke about that. That happened on Hungar's stream the other day, and we streamed for 2.5 hours after he had left. None of us could close the stream, so we're like, okay. We started to feel guilty because we're using up all his Streamyards time.
I don't think he cares.
No.
Yeah, Hungar is chilling like a villain. He's all good.
Yeah.
But it was just hilarious. Anyway.
So, any of you had any games since we last all met last Wednesday?
I had to cancel my Monday game. That sucked. And then and then I'm not making it to my game where I'm a player tonight. Yay.
I usually play on a Friday night with a sci-fi game, which feels somewhere between a Gene Stealer and the how do I want to put it, Starship Troopers. So I've got my Neo dog, and it was Like, I'm the doctor, and I'm also the animal trainer, so I have to have veterinary and surgery, regular surgeon. So that's it.
Anybody else? Any games?
I played OSE on Saturday, the one I'm playing in, not the one I'm running. And our DM, who's my niece's fiance, is getting a little too far away from OSE and too many house rules and too much into Lamentations of the Flame Princess, which I have no interest in. So it's like my interest in the game is waning.
mechanically like Lamentation, or
he's hybridizing everything. He doesn't like the coin weight encumbered system, so he likes the slot based system. And I'm like, okay, I'm not a big fan, but
I don't mind slot based if it's going to be like small items don't count as a slot.
Yeah, no, he's got all sorts of little things. And the other thing he did that really put me off was he announced to the cleric mid-game that, oh, by the way, turning undead now costs spell slots. It's like,
what?
Thing
I
is,
remember reading that in
OSE already has two encumbrance systems. It has a coin-based one and a simplified one. And
he doesn't like either. He doesn't like either. So he's he's making various changes, and it's like I'm not opposed to house rules, but he's doing them on the fly and introducing them mid-session too, which is aggravating. But
I think that's one of those that if you're going to start doing that is play the raw initially, and then as you start going through it, seeing like, hey, we're going to try this change out. If it doesn't
you
work,
have to have a dialogue though for it. You
Yeah.
can't just I made. By the way.
I made that mistake when I started running FMAG, where I just changed a bunch of stuff, and I've come to the position where I'm just going to learn a system properly before I start tampering with it. A little more sad on my part. Unfortunately, my Lion and Dragon game, after 2 long years of gaming in one setting or another, is finally dead.
Oh, due to dead characters or just dead?
Yeah, there was just some stuff that I'd rather not get into. Just
fair enough.
Yeah, but I'm enthused because I'm going to start Stonehell and Amherst hopefully in the next few months. Probably when I get the new version of Sword and Wizardry, which I'm looking forward to.
I have been continuing to do campaign stuff even when between sessions. Though that's one thing I like about having the Discord channel is that we get to play so little now. Like even when we get to play, we're down to like 2.5 hours a session.
Ooh.
Yeah, which really stinks. But at that point, it's like I'm getting as much out of the way as I can in downtime. Like, all right, all your shopping, all your planning, you guys have a week of time before you have to actually, head out on your quest. What are you doing? Questions you want to ask, allies you want to look out for, lore you want to check for. What are you doing with your week's time? Let's do it all now. Yeah. So by the time we get to playing, you can just get up and go.
Yeah, that helps. For the IRL group, for the real life group, I'm hopefully going to set up. I might actually make another Discord for them to just, hey, these are questions you can ask me. Go ahead if you have any things. Go for it.
So I'm just going to say hello to those who've joined since I did me hellos. We've got Squirrel Hermit and we've got Ian McDonald in chat as well. So hello, chaps. Good to see everybody here. Right, shall we get started on the topic? Because I know Omanal has to depart fairly abruptly tonight. And he has requested that we start with monks. Because
monkeying around.
Hello, Hungar. Hello. So, monks. Now, I first saw the monk in AD&D. I know there was a Dragon magazine version of it. I don't know if there was a Dragon magazine before the AD&D books, but there was a revised monk that came in Dragon.
There was one even before that. It was in the Greyhawk supplement it came out for as well.
Well,
no. In OD&D, there was a for the Greyhawk supplement for OD&D. They had one. I know this because they included it in Sword and Wizardry.
Oh, right.
One of these days, it's going to bite you in the butt, relying on Sword and Wizardry being OD&D.
Well, I mean, I'm just going by what Matt Finch. Matt Finch said he looked through all the supplements and he included what was in the supplements. So I'm going at his word.
Now, with monks, a lot of people have hummed and heard about whether the flavor of the monk fits the traditional European medieval style of AD&D. Oh, hello, Hungar. Hello, Hungar.
We are
Yes,
nerds.
we are nerds. We are nerds.
Isn't that kind of the entry level here?
Nerds.
He's just confirming it.
Yes. Thank you, Hungar. But, that never bothered me because I was never into... In fact, right, I've said this before on stream, but confession now. I'd never heard the term monk used to refer to a martial artist till probably
Franciscan
the late
monk?
80s. I assumed a monk would be more like Friar Tuck.
Yeah.
Well, and that's because you didn't grow up with kung
Fooey
fu.
Dooey Kung Fooey.
I didn't. No.
Yeah.
No,
The Kung Fu series with Kwai Chang
Yes.
Caine.
Yes, exactly.
it was on TV over here. There were some of those sort of series on TV over here, but I never really watched them. I was out on my bike or playing cricket or kicking a ball around when those sort of things were on.
And he was actually doing Kung Fu with his judo and stuff.
Oh yeah. So it never bothered me. The whole flavor thing, I never had any issues, though the class did always seem to be a little bit wonky in how it was coming to the game mechanically, because of the immense amount of restrictions, but the odd combination of powers that the monk got.
I remember it has the health of a magic user originally.
Mm-hmm.
It has a cleric's progression system, and it hits like a thief.
No, other way around.
It
hits like
is it the other way around?
Saves like a thief.
It's like a thief. Thank you. Or it progresses, like, as in it levels like a thief. Yeah. Or no,
it levels slowly.
No,
Levels
it has its
slowly.
own,
So,
it
yeah, no,
has
you're
its
right.
own
Yeah,
level
yeah.
chart. But
You're right. Yeah. But it's weird, but it works.
And one of the complaints I've heard about it is that it kind of technically just introduces a weird kind of third magic system into the game. Between Arcane and Cleric.
But
I think that was when it became the Mystic in BX.
No, it's always been a complaint that I've heard. It's like, where does Key fit in?
Key didn't come in initially. No. Key was earlier.
Well, I mean,
Key was 2E, I think.
It's thematically still in the background of the stuff. It's not key points or anything like that, but it's still.
Oh, you mean the metaphysics of the thing?
Yeah, the metaphysics.
Right.
Kind of like how psionics rubbed everybody the wrong way. The monk rubbed a few people the wrong way because of it's like where does it fit? Is it arcane?
Well, I mean, that's what the quivering palm is for, isn't it?
I never heard that. Because we watched Kung Fu so much. We watched enough Kung Fu films.
So did I, but I'm talking about in the D&D communities, because I think it caused a problem with people's sort of a dissonance in the base concessions of the game, because we had holy magic and we had wizardy magic. So, and I think they're kind of doing a weird sort of pseudo magical thing.
I didn't like that any more than anything else. Maybe I just never heard that.
My way of kind of reconciling with the fact that it didn't seem to fit the supposed European setting, but then again,
that was always my issue.
My lack of a better term, generic D&D setting, which are sword and sorcery pulp adventures, they had monks in them anyway. Like, I think Conan had some Shaolin monks in there.
Well, Conan
at one
also
point.
had at least 2 Asian nations in the setting that he went to frequently. And
then
they also had a lot of cultural mix-ups in there too. His setting had people from all over the world in little creches and neighborhoods.
And that's the bottom line. You're playing a fantasy game. You can insert whatever element.
Because he was inspired by the Theosophy movement, stuff like Lemuria and Atlanteans and stuff like it. It was weird. A lot of that stuff was weird anyway.
Anyway, I never had any problems with Conan, and especially as I'm starting to learn a little bit of Russian. I know where Kitai comes from, so
So the AD&D monk, yes, it was a clarification, wasn't it, that it attacked as a cleric because there was a misprint, I believe.
The DMG updated and used the updated.
It saved as a thief. It had basic thief skills. Its hit points were slightly better than a magic user.
You started with 2d4.
2d4. Yeah, initially they just had, in the supplement, they had just 1d4. So they were even more frail, way more frail.
And they didn't get a dexterity bonus to armor class, which meant they had AC 10 at first level.
Wait, I thought they did add their dexterity to their armor. Did they not?
They get a trade-off, however, because you still
keeps going up, right?
Your AC goes down every level with a couple of hiccups there, but you also got the ability to deflect missile fire, which
and magic missile.
Yeah, well, not magic missiles, but missile fire.
Oh.
But you add your dexterity bonus to that saving throw, so you still get your dex bonus there. And if you make a saving throw against things like fireball, you take no damage. So that's the trade-off.
Nice.
So you lose a couple of points of AC, but you gain those very, very useful abilities.
Got your kung fu jump.
You also got for strength. That was the other thing. Yeah,
you don't get your strength bonus to damage, but that's compensated for because for every 2 levels of experience, every even level, you add 1 to damage, which adds up real fast.
Only if you're fighting someone with weapons.
You have to use your weapons.
But you're unarmored. You get upwards of like 5 unarmed attacks anyway. So
4. They do 4 die 8 per hit. So you're slaughtering.
Right here, looking at it. So it's
I'm referring to, I don't know, like again, like Omanal said, I don't know how pinpoint accurate S&W is to original D&D, but they got upwards of 5 attacks per round. They get a most 5 plus 5. But that by the time they get to 20th, they get those 5 attacks. They get at most plus 5 to all damage. But the deflect missile thing also included magic missile, which I don't know if that's an original or not.
It's not in
AD&D. Right? But still, that's still kind of cool though.
The thing about monks is that people have to understand is you're not a frontline karate fighter. You are basically thief adjacent. You are it's a thief class that can work with paladins for one because you can be lawful good. But
you're almost kind of like a proto ninja also in that regard.
With the thief skills and stuff like that.
Your key abilities are important. Like at level 3, you get the ability to speak with animals at will. And if your DM is using ordinary animals on a regular basis, that ability is so overpowered, it's not funny. It'll save your life every time.
Yeah, and they can go into a perfect state of that simulates death.
That's at level 6.
6.
They also get
level 5. They're immune to disease and cannot be affected by haste.
As in they're immune to the age side of haste, or just all of them?
No, you can't be affected
by hasted.
0 effect
or slowed.
Slow and haste. You can't use.
That's pretty
wasted.
If you really look into it, there's a lot of really cool, Asian
stuff.
Kind of martial arts philosophy going into that class, because the whole freedom of movement and just the deflection and then the climbing weird surfaces. You have that early wuxia kind of style in there.
And there's all stealth skills and that sort of stuff in there.
The thieving skills, The key to using, pardon the pun, the key to using a monk is you treat them as one of your thieves. So when your toe-to-toe fighters are distracting the big enemies, the monk circles around and gets them from the back. And you don't get a back stab, but your open hand potentially instantly kills them.
I was about to say their coolest thing was their stun effect.
The stun, it's unreal. Yeah,
it's insane. Yeah. Oh yeah. If you against an AC 15 target and you get a 20, stunned, and then there's I think it's.
Oh no!
It's a 75. It's a 74.
Stop trying to do this incremental progression. It's AC 5.
No, you just have to hit by a margin of 5.
Ascending armor class is better, Romanal. fight me on
And
this.
I'm not disagreeing with that, but if you're going to be going, but you have to use the proper.
Fine. Okay, increments of 5.
I would say the Monk's greatest single power was quite simply how quickly they moved. They were effectively the anti-wizard class.
Yeah, especially if you got surprise.
The kind of sad thing in 3rd edition from that video I told you about from DM It All, apparently in 3rd edition that actually but no, just as a side tangent, that went against the monk because of their attacks and how they did attacks. If you moved, you couldn't attack more than once, so which was unfortunate.
That's true in 1st ed because you can only move an attack if you charge, which only allows 1 attack.
Right, okay.
But obviously, if they're focusing on wizards, they've got a good chance to hit them, good chance to stun them. They can hit them very quickly, and they can obviously, if you can hit them, you disrupt spells. And that I think that was their main utility after being the thief backup. But they needed quite a few XP to go up levels.
I will answer Shadow and Sons. Yes, they were considered a cleric adjacent, yes, but it's probably better just to think of them as thieves rather than clerics.
That's their utility, is more of a thief. But they fight better than thieves. They are better in combat than thieves are.
Yeah, I guess you could kind of consider them as to thieves as clerics are to fighters, maybe.
Kind of.
I mean, there are a few things they can't do. Is they can't use flaming oil. They have to be lawful. So there's that aspect.
You got a vow of poverty, so you can't keep your loot.
And they can't. They can't
drink potions. No, you can't drink potions.
That's a big thing, and they can only use certain magic weapons and rings. Correct.
It wasn't the whole not being able to drink potions thing kind of also part of that whole like mystical martial arts body equilibrium kind of a thing or something.
It's not spelled out, but that would be my interpretation. It's like your body is your temple.
Clean body, clean body, clean mind kind of shit.
Exactly.
Yeah. They did their due diligence, honestly.
Yeah, whoever wrote up the monk class was clearly a Kung Fu Theater fan.
And
were monks?
Their slow progression was a bit of a pain as well. They needed between 2 and 3 times the XP of thieves per level on average.
Question: Did they are monks easy to harder to surprise in AD&D?
Eventually, they start normal, but then you get a 2% reduction per level.
Right.
So,
okay.
And the other aspect is looking at it, and we're talking about they advanced like illusionists did for, and it's a little bit more than a thief. So
2,500, something like that.
3,000, I think.
2,250.
Yeah. No, Ken size 3,000. That's.
And but to be fair, when everyone's looking at these things, it depends on what you're looking at. A 12th level thief is you'll have a monk that's 10th level by the time you have a 12th level thief. So because remember, you have that doubling for a while, it's not really until you get way up there that it gets a lot worse. Because even like when you're multi-class, you're still within 1 or 2 levels of the other players.
Yeah, but I would love to play a 10th level monk. That would be pretty brutal.
They're immune to like the Gios and Quest spell.
Gesh, you mean? You're Celtic. How can you not pronounce it a Gesh?
I don't know. I've only ever heard it pronounced as Gios, so
because you've only heard it pronounced by idiots.
Touche. That's fair.
No.
Or the ignorant.
No. What it means is that those people are well read. They're just not listened to. That's all it really means.
But seriously,
I'd love to see. I want to hear one time that a monk is going to is going to touch someone with his quivering palm. I just want to hear that one time in a campaign, and I can die a happy man.
Well, here's the other point too: is your saving throw.
And then when he's done after getting it,
your saving throws allowed you to get 0 damage from like area effect spells. In certain cases.
But once you get to 9th level, it enhances because even if you fail, you still take half damage.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Oh, is that where the evasion in 5e came from? Huh.
That's pretty much.
One of the problems with the monk, though, is not many people play them.
Well, they're hard to qualify for.
They're hard to qualify for. You need 3 15s and an 11. And they have to be in strength, wisdom, and dexterity for the 15s, and constitution 11. So
and the big problem is
You're going to struggle to get a constitution bonus there. You're going to struggle to even qualify for it. It's very restrictive at low levels. And I've only ever once had somebody properly, fairly play a monk up above sort of level 2 or 3. And that character got to about level 8.
Really?
But the player got bored of playing the character. And that might have been his own doing, because at first level, he only picked one. You only get one weapon proficiency, and he picked lasso, so he couldn't do a lot of damage. But he was very effective with his lasso.
Well, isn't it a Tui character? I don't know. That's my.
That was an Earth Arcana.
Okay,
right. Earth Arcana proficiencies. So he went with the lasso, but we played. Was it I have the Serpent UK5, and there's a bit in that where you've got to recover a little wooden idol for a potentially friendly lizard man, and the monk did all of that entirely by himself. Climbed the tree behind the enemies that had got the idol silently, passed all these rolls, and then used his lasso to hook this little idol that was propped up against the tree. And the creatures that were guarding it never even knew the monk was there. It was beautifully done. And then we played UK2, the Sentinel. The party only had 1 or 2 magic weapons, and they got attacked by a couple of gargoyles. So what happened to the gargoyles? The monk aimed his lasso at one of them. Obviously can't do any damage, but he can bring it down to earth, and pulled the gargoyle down to the ground. Which point the fighters jumped on it with magic daggers and then took out the other one. So the monk, if used cleverly like that, was highly effective.
I'm going to ask something, because I'm looking down here, or maybe I'm just off because it's been a while since I've looked at it. Miscellaneous magic items; those aren't potions.
No.
Okay, just want to make sure.
That's anything that doesn't qualify for, it doesn't categorize as any one of the specifically categorized items, like armor, shields, staffs, wands.
In the Dungeon Master's Guide,
Scrolls are their own thing.
In the Dungeon Master's Guide, there's specifically 5 or 6 tables entitled miscellaneous magic items.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. Brian James had an interesting question/comment that might be worth taking a look at and discussing at some point.
Which is?
Excuse me.
I can't star them or anything.
Okay.
It says, I have not found a way way that Eastern monks make sense in a Western setting. If I were using an Eastern setting style, then I could include them as playable character. I tend to go Western Europe. So, I mean, we've all kind of touched on that briefly, but I think it's maybe something worth talking about.
Well, I think most things, it's just like bringing a samurai or bushi or any of those others from Oriental Adventures. Is you can do it, but the real question is, what kind of setting do you want?
Well, I think the monk is easier to do than a lot of those, though, because the way that I handled it, even when I was still like I couldn't get my head around it because it didn't fit, is monks story-wise and thematically tend to do a lot of wandering and questing and kind of going on their various journeys for enlightenment or whatever. The whole kung fu genre mythology is full of like those long wandering
journey
quests.
To the west.
Yeah, kind of thing. So it's really easy to, if somebody has made a monk character, and with monks being so statistically rare, if you play them as they're supposed to be based on their attribute requirements, then maybe he just wandered in from the east. He's a visitor from a far off land. I mean, if you want to keep
I think
them
a
pure,
bushi would work well for that too.
Well, and honestly, any of those characters you can do it.
Yeah.
I mean, honestly, you can do anything you want, come up with a rationale for any character. But specifically speaking of the monk, I think the monk, the lore, the kind of the base default,
the mythos
lore of monks allows for that really easily.
Well, the reason I'm interested in the bushi is because the bushi had if you didn't get enough honor, you switched over to a bushi, and they're the ones that are wandering anyway. So
I'm just trying to speak.
So those would be like Ronin,
because that's what he was asking about.
Yeah,
I would imagine probably.
What you don't realize is, in order to get my black belt, I had to walk barefoot to a fig tree and sit underneath it and meditate for 12 hours non-stop.
At the end of it, you could talk to the tree.
Exactly.
Well, at the
And
end,
I might not be telling the truth.
On the Eastern versus Western sort of theme, I mean, there's nothing saying you have to keep the Eastern theme just because that's what it was in our real world. You're playing a fantasy game.
Absolutely.
There's nothing that says your Western-based, kind of idea didn't have some kind of unarmed combat masters that were monks.
Well, on the flip side, I'm pretty damn sure that we've seen people in the past make samurai characters out of the base fighter.
Exactly.
Right. Exactly.
Yeah.
If you can go the other way, I mean, how many people made Mako from Conan using a wizard character, a magic user character, or maybe a cleric?
Or a ninja with a thief. I mean, they have all the base. That's why a lot of times I like the OSE base classes rather than trying to expand everything.
Because you can make what you need out of them. Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. That's kind of the appeal. I've come to appreciate why like
on the Euro versus Asian thing. A good way is just the wandering monk. It's a trope.
Yep.
Use it.
Yep.
Yeah, I mean,
or set up a monk school.
Like monk school, yeah.
Yeah, like for me, for my campaign world, I put a little Japanese style trade island off the coast, off the southern coast of my campaign world, back in my old original campaign world as a kid. A little island that had been pretty much settled by all the Easterners who came in and kind of they were trading with the West. It was their trade port, so it was a good excuse to have any of those classes there.
Yeah,
I mean, you could just say the monk's Friar Tuck with some kung fu skills, couldn't you? And there you go.
Yeah, the
like
other way I handled it, like I've mentioned before, is just it's holy power. Instead of martial arts power.
Like, I mean, you could easily justify it, I think.
Yeah, exactly.
Exactly.
It's kind of what
I just look at it as it's just mental for the most part. I don't see the point of trying to say, oh, it's magical. I mean, every character has magical stuff in there, and so it's like, oh,
yeah, okay. It's. I'm gonna kind of paraphrase a newer game. So, the Righteous Blood, Ruthless Blades game that came out, the Wuxia game specifically, Wuxia game is like, there's no magic in here. You can run across the tops of trees, and you can punch somebody so hard that their soul leaves their body, but there's no magic.
you can fucking split. You can split the atom of a statue right down perfectly down the middle.
Like one example is there's an ability in that game that allows you to strike a chord on your musical instrument that can actually cut people. Like,
but there's no magic.
Thank you,
but there's no magic.
That's some Kung Fu Hustle. That's some Kung Fu Hustle shit, man.
Well, Kung Fu Hustle is wuxia, but that's
yeah, it's great.
Exactly.
But so my point is that and I'm kind of agreeing with you, Omanal. So maybe take a drink on that one. But
actually, we agree on a lot of stuff. It's the little tiny things that we usually argue about.
Well, what's funny is I don't think we've had a real good argument in a a long time.
I think he's more focusing on me. To be fair, but I think the one thing that I've noticed though that would actually make it harder for the monk to play in, say, a more European established setting. Right, and I don't notice this like which is why I'm glad I stuck with Swords and Wizardry, because it doesn't have this rule. Is the monk needs to fight a master in order to level?
Yeah,
that may be
for another campaign arc.
Yeah, that's true.
Just like having a player character die is an excuse to go on a quest to bring him back.
That's fair. That's we go also, to the monk and the monastery in the mountains or something where there's a dragon.
Only need to fight. You only need to fight a master if there's no vacant spot. If the spot is vacant, you just level.
Yeah,
that's where the assassin comes in.
Oh well,
really?
I have to swear a vow of poverty. Here's all of the 20,000 gold we just got from the dragon to go kill that other monk.
That's totally. A lawful evil monk would totally do that.
Okay. You could be lawful evil, so you could pay the assassin to do it.
But no, see, I would argue that he wouldn't, because his honor would demand that he fight him.
If he's lawful evil,
there's no honor in here. All it says is that you're lawful. He did exactly what he's supposed to. There's a vacancy. I move up.
Well, exactly. As a lawful guy, he's going to go say the law just says I have to defeat him. It doesn't say how.
Yeah, but he would argue that you didn't defeat him. It was the assassin that did it
for you. Unless there's a vacancy, I just created the vacancy.
He's not going to let people know he did the assassination. He's not going to let people know that. Oh, my poor master.
They're gonna know.
I will gladly take his spot and attempt to honor him. No, they won't.
Well, here's the other thing, DK.
Depends how good the assassin is.
If you're lawful evil, you're going to kill him anyway. The question is, are you doing it behind the scenes, or are you going to just smack him up in the face and kill him? It doesn't really matter.
Yeah, but it says you have to fight him. You have to fight him, not dethrone him. You have to fight him.
Unless there's a vacancy.
Unless there's a vacancy.
Oh my God!
It's a chicken and the egg thing, man. Except for in this case,
you're
pure
not
chicken.
reading rules as written. Is the problem, DK? Is you're trying to read into intent.
DK, your interpretation isn't wrong. It's just not the only interpretation.
Exactly.
Okay, that's fair. That's fair. All right. Okay.
Yeah.
Much as I love the monks, I actually I've implemented 2 house rules for my AD&D monks that I've found work quite well and the players love. The first one is because I use weapon type adjustments. I make the monks treat them as natural armor, so weapon type adjustments don't apply to them. So that crunchy +4 or +3 if a knife fighter, a dagger fighter is going, it becomes 0. Right, so that works pretty well, and that also justifies. It kind of gives you another sort of trade-off for the fact that you're not getting your dex bonus. The other one I use that it's my most recent, but has turned out to be. Oh, he's back. That turned out to be a lot of fun. Was I ported over the fighter rule, where they get the mook rule, where they get to 1 attack per level of experience against less than full hit die creatures. The player in my game running the monk loves it. There's your karate dynamo, fists of fury, flying and wading into a ton of enemies.
Yeah,
I'm not disagreeing with Squirrelhorn about Palladium alignment superior, but it doesn't fit with the but that doesn't assume other things.
Yeah, we'll also keep in mind. I mean, in AD&D, you kind of have to go with the alignment system in there because it's mechanical. It's not just. It's not like in later editions where it was sort of vestigial.
Flavorful.
It is vestigial. It's still there, but it doesn't do anything.
So second edition
doesn't mean it's just flavor, basically.
I was going to say it was a kit in second edition, wasn't it?
I think Greyhawk may have included it later on.
It was a fighter kit, if I remember correctly.
Cleric kit, actually, but the Scarlet Brotherhood actually redid the monk and the assassin class in that supplement. So there is a monk class.
Yeah, the Scarlet Monk and the Scarlet Brotherhood are interesting.
After second edition was there, it was what? I mean, it was what, 5, 6, or was it 1995 or later?
Well, if you talk amongst yourselves while I grab my book, hold on.
Oh, okay.
91, 92. Yeah, no, that 91, 92. That cleric book wouldn't come out.
No. That was a cleric book. No, what he's referring to is where the actual cleric class came out. That was much later. So yeah, that's what I was told, because I went, oh no, it was a kit, and then later on they made it into a class. But that's when I think a lot of us left.
Yeah, Scarlet Brotherhood was published in. Sorry, I need my readers here. No, it's a Greyhawk thing, isn't it?
You'll find it.
It's definitely a later one because there's a website list here.
Remember, there was second edition Greyhawk stuff coming out, so
I think because the Scarlet Brotherhood was like Gary or like based off of Gary.
This is 1999, so this is like right.
Scarlet Brotherhood is not just monks. Scarlet Brotherhood has representatives of all classes.
Really, I thought they were just a monk thing.
No, Scarlet Brotherhood is a collection of evil guys who are, imagine, basically your big Cobra, Hydra. Kind of organization.
They're basically they're like those mid-century German
quite a lot.
People,
yeah. Well, they also had as many assassins as they had monks too, though, or assassin monks if that was a thing.
I don't think monks could
Scarlet Brotherhood was a place in Greyhawk as well.
Remember, NPCs could multi-class into whatever the hell they wanted.
Well, remember, there's dual class. You can still dual class. Everyone forgets about.
Well, the thing is, NPCs and stuff and monsters always broke those combo limitations, anyways.
Yeah, it was just for players. Yeah.
I mean, remember, clerics of Horus in the original Deeds of Demigods were said to all be chaotic. Is it chaotic neutral paladins or something like that, or chaotic good paladins or something like that?
Yeah. There was Myrmidons, yeah, all those.
Well, no, it was even before that came out. There was in the section in the old deities and demigods, the original one, not the OD&D one, but the original AD&D one. They have a little note under Horus saying that all of his priests are his clerics are actually paladins of a non-lawful good alignment. I can't remember which one though, because I don't have it here.
If it's Horus, it would probably be a good alignment. 1 second.
So I will say something that I did hear from a lot of people, because, there isn't really much to say if they're just going to be considered a kit. But when 3rd edition came out, because so many people weren't even familiar with monks, they're like, oh my God, the monks are awesome. Have you looked at them? They have all these powers. And I said, yeah, it looks like all the stuff from 1st edition. So
only watered down.
Yeah.
But
I think that's the.
There's a monk NPC who can join your party in one of the the original Baldur's Gate game.
I will say this much, and we didn't touch it, but the Dragon Magazine monk was even more awesome for all the stuff. Gets the invisibility once per day, resistance to charms, retarded aging, body control, dimension door, speak with plants. Yeah, I know. Well, to be fair, most of these powers players are never going to get, because most campaigns probably didn't go to 13 level.
I mean, if you need invisibility for your monk, just have the wizard cast invisibility on him.
I don't know. I could almost see with all of the other powers that monks have, giving them invisibility at maybe at least some form of a limited invisibility, because then you're in the mystic level of sneaky.
I'd say if they earned it, if they did some like crazy shit and they defeated another monk of a certain discipline, like the order of the disappearing snake or something like that, then maybe I'd be like, and you earn a once a day power of invisibility.
Well, that's what it was. It was once a day for the invisibility.
Yeah.
You add psionics to a monk, and then you're off the races.
We'll get into the Oriental Adventures rules for martial arts, and then they start having the martial techniques and stuff. That was actually cool. That was based on an earlier Dragon magazine. I actually really dug when they started giving actual styles to martial artists.
It could be very broken. You could quite easily build it into something unreal.
It could, but then again, also in an Oriental Adventures campaign, everybody could get martial arts styles, if I remember correctly. Almost at least, yeah. Because I mean, it was just considered. They're Asians; they must know martial arts.
Sorry, John. What was that?
I need to have a read of the grappling rules for. I've never really put much attention to Oriental Adventures for AD&D. It's just a setting that never really appealed to me. So I'll have to have a browse of it sometime.
Oriental Adventures had some really cool things that you start getting into it with the kicks and other stuff. But
I really feel that the family rules in there were really useful to port into other games too. Like if you want characters to have their family matter, and
all right, guys, I'll be back in probably an hour. I've got he's not small anymore. I've got a child that will rake me over the coals if I don't grab him. See you in a bit.
We'll catch you in a bit.
See you, dude.
All right. Cheers.
Later, man.
But so we're on second ed monks at the moment, yeah.
I have no idea about monks. Well, we sort of briskly going through them because I don't think any of us got any real.
I just got one more question. Did in AD&D was there a restriction on how many monks could be in a party?
No.
Oh, okay. Oh no, they couldn't hire mercenaries, was it?
You're restricted by the fact that they're hard to qualify for, and you were never likely to see.
Yeah, obviously. Yeah, it's not like the ranger where there can only be like one of them in a party.
It can only be three. Yeah, 3 rangers.
3, yeah, right.
But the ranger is literally the only class with that restriction.
Okay, cool.
I did play I was going to say on third ed, my first third ed character was a monk, and I played it for a little bit. That was 15 years ago. I'm trying to remember. I remember not liking remember thinking it was okay. The DM wasn't very good, so I mean that colors it. He was one of those railroad types that no matter what happened, his story was getting through.
Yeah. Player choice be damned. They're seeing my novel.
Yeah,
but no, I was actually, like I said, I was watching a video about the monk recently, like literally today, and I didn't even realize John was gonna do the stream about monks today. Apparently, like in third ed, they it wasn't that because they removed the stat requirement if what I've been told is correct, but they also got really they got hampered by the whole movement and attack thing. But again, in AD&D, but it wasn't as bad in AD&D given how that system worked. But given the fact that third edition was more about superheroics, it really did kind of damper it. But the other interesting thing was that the fact that even though technically, even if you had low stats, you could be a monk, you really needed to have high stats in virtually everything except charisma to really shine, because you need to have high strength to do damage with melee. You have to have high dex for I think for certain other abilities like your saving throws. You needed constitution to survive for health. You needed intelligence for your thief skills, and you needed wisdom for your monk abilities, like the stun abilities and stuff like that. So it was what in later became known as a multi attribute dependent class, or MAD.
MAD magazine.
Yeah, MAD and SAD. SAD is a single attribute dependent, and multi attribute dependent. That's how little I know about it. I didn't play third edition. This is just what
my only experience of monks has been from first edition and fifth edition. I haven't played or even really read about monks in any of the ones in between.
Railroading aside, Sean, how did you find the monk? How did you find that it played?
It was pretty generic. The third one was pretty generic. I mean, it had like some of the abilities. You had the choice of going, making your multiple attacks at penalty, and I think you had a limited number of the stunning strikes, which I found annoying. It's like because you had to get it right. If you failed, that was it. You couldn't attempt to stun until you recovered, or you had your
points. Right.
Yeah. I mean, I'll play anything, so I didn't mind it, but at the same time, being the first ed booster that I am, I love the fact that the monk's abilities are just their abilities. Even Oriental Adventures kind of hamstrung the monk in that you had to spend key to use your abilities, the stunning strike, the dodging ability, all that. You had to use up your key. You can only do it a certain amount of times a day. And part of the special thing about the first ed monk is they're hard to qualify for, but you get these unlimited abilities.
Sorry, Briar James just pointed out, did I hear you correctly, DK, when you said the Order of the Disappearing Snake? That sounds very Monty Python-esque. I was referring to going invisible, but now I have to have a Monty Python Spanish Inquisition style monk thing in a game at some point. I think that'd be kind of funny.
So moving on to the 5th edition monk, it's one of the classes in 5th edition that I don't mind. I've seen a lot of grumbling about it having power issues, but to be honest, I don't care about that. It's the standard monk. It's one of the ones that doesn't cast spells, and there are some of the archetypes that have got
later
style abilities, but
one of them did. I think it was the 4 elements.
The 4 elements, yeah.
One does, yes.
Oh, is that the one that plays?
But yeah, that's one of the ones that nobody plays ever. It's except for people who are diehard Avatar: The Last Airbender fans, which is what they kind of compare it to.
Right.
So. But apart from that, nobody plays it ever because it's very clunky with how it handles stuff. Its abilities are kind of weird. Whereas compared to when I get to a certain level, I can just spend key points to do my Quivering Palm ability, and someone instantly dies. Boom! I'm going to take that.
But weird is half the fun. I want to play a 4 elements monk. The problem is I don't really want to play 5th edition. So I guess I'm messing up.
The one
that is true. But
for 5th edition, the one that I always wish that they had done is somehow detached the abilities of the monk from their specific subclasses, because part of the whole martial arts tradition in my mind is learning the such and such technique and then going and finding a master to learn the such and such technique. And they kind
So
of
there's like the
pigeonhole you
Sun
into
Soul
one.
monk.
Well, they pigeonhole
Yeah.
you into one school, and that makes sense because there might be schools of monks. But I would love to have, like, maybe if they were to expand them into feats or something like that, where you could go,
Right,
like,
right.
I want to learn, Fist of the Dragon, and okay, cool. And then my next level where I get a feat,
Uppercut of the crane, or lower kick of the spider monkey, or some shit like that.
That's part of the lore that is, like at least of the kind of superpowered martial arts that fit into 5e that are not.
I mean, that's kind of it. It's literally the two different masters from two different disciplines go head to head. Like that is such a common trope in kung fu films.
But so is the trope of fighting your entire fight through you using crane style with the blah blah blah, and suddenly pulling out the stone ox fist of fury, blah blah blah. I'm just making stuff off the top of my head.
I mean, literally, the one
they'll always like, suddenly I got beat, so now I'm gonna wander and find a master to learn a new technique.
It's the Vegeta, it's the Vegeta versus Goku thing, and
that's not there. And that was like, I felt like such a miss. I'm like, I've even looked at my monk player once. I'm like, what would you do if I let you multi-class into monk as a monk? He's like, would you let me do that? I'm like, I don't see any reason why not. Your base abilities are going to be the same. You'll just get new
subclass stuff.
New subclass stuff.
Yeah. It's, I don't know. It's. I feel like from what I've seen, what actually the video I referred to earlier is that, like, once we got to 5th edition, that's when they did the monk the best. Like 4th and 5th editions, when it's like, really, where they have all their abilities are dependent on an expendable resources, where before they could just do it. That's when we.
Well, everything in 5th edition though is an expendable resource.
I know, yeah, but it's
another, and that's the core mechanic for 5th edition. Whereas older editions, it was times per day or, yeah.
Yeah, but it's I don't know.
I of the monks I've seen, I am limited to AD&D in 5th edition.
Right.
I don't mind either. But I do quite like the AD&D monk, the way it works, because it is something that is so different and requires so much thought from the player playing it. I've already made it clear I don't mind the flavour of them, because I didn't hear the term monk used to describe a martial artist till my late teens. I assumed they were robe-wearing friars who were just good at punching people.
I mean, England is known for a good pugilist and a good,
yeah, exactly.
I mean,
exactly.
When I go European, just say they're British brewers who like to punch people in the face. That sounds like every football hooligan that ever existed.
So, and I quite like the mechanics of that first edition monk, simply because it is. As I said, it requires so much thought from the players to actually get one to survive. But it's a class that rewards clever thinking, and it has a defined role. So, anyway, I think we've hammered monks.
Just one question though. L asked, did Tuck actually fight in Robin Hood? In some of the movies, he did. In some movies, he did.
Some versions of he even picks up a sword from time to time.
Yeah, so he's clearly not a cleric.
Didn't Robin Hood meet him over a staff duel of some sort?
That's Little John.
Yeah.
Oh, Little John.
Don't you have to surrender your citizenship if you don't know the legend of Robin Hood in and out?
Yeah.
It's like me not knowing the legend of Paul Bunyan.
I've never heard of Paul Bunyan.
The giant logger and his massive blue ox. The reason we have a Grand Canyon and the Great Lakes. Come on, man.
He's a Euro trash, and you're like an American snob. So like, two myths that shall never meet.
No, I don't expect anybody to know anything.
I don't
People have different interests, so it's okay.
Touche.
Anyway,
that is a very smart thing to do.
I mean, I went to Japan and knew names for weapons that my Japanese host family didn't know.
Well,
like I'm naming bows by their specific bow name, and they're using the generic name, and I'm like, no, it's this. And she's like, no, it's Yumi. I'm like, no, it's a Daikyu. She's like, no, Yumi. I'm like, that's because I'm a nerd and she's a
And they're just
housewife.
yeah. Yeah.
And an English teacher.
It's like
but
well, actually, that's a type 4 sword, and a Roman would just look at it and say, no, that's a gladius.
well,
That's all.
Nobody
it is.
in the old world would ever call them a type 4 anyways, because those aren't real world terminologies. Those are academic designations.
Exactly. Yeah.
Anyway, I'm trying to peel us away from monks. And you keep gluing us back to it. Right, let's get on to Cavalier.
He wants to go back to his English roots and play a
Let's go back to
play a knight. That's what he wants to do.
Let's go to Cavaliers. Right,
The
Cavalier,
inferior paladin.
it was the paladin in Unearthed Arcana.
It's the non-magical paladin.
The Cavalier, it appeared officially in AD&D in Unearthed Arcana, but it was based on a class that had been put about in Dragon magazine. I haven't yet got to the edition that had it to begin with, and it was, let's just say, a class that was awkward. It's had a lot of bad stuff written about it. A lot of people have blamed it for various aspects of the game, and some of it's been unfair. Some of it has been unfair because D&D needed a chivalrous knight, really, that wasn't a paladin. And yes, you could argue you could have easily played a regular fighter as a chivalrous knight.
You just throw in a code of chivalry that they have to follow, and that's it. You're good to go.
Yeah, or even clerics to a degree could do it. You know?
Yeah, anybody could. I mean, anybody can be knighted, and that's the thing. You know, you don't have to be a fighter class. Like you can knight a wizard.
It's the same thing with the samurai. The samurai is a caste in society, not an occupation.
But Slan's right here. The Cavaliers do need the right sort of setting really to work because it is that code of chivalry, and I like some of the mechanics that the Cavalier brought to the table. The idea that armor,
like Method 5,
armor is your badge of status. A Cavalier will choose to wear regular plate mail instead of chainmail +5 because regular plate mail is deemed to be of a higher station than.
Yep, that one bit me in the ass a few times.
Once
the Cavalier came online, I stopped playing paladins because I was never really interested in the magic of paladins. I actually just wanted to be sort of the heroic knight character, and I got my wish.
Oh, look, I'm so sorry, Mr. Paladin. There's another studded leather armor +5. It's amazing you keep finding them. I don't know. It's just the dice, I guess.
Yeah, yes. I'm pretty sure at least one DM taunted me.
I think a DM who actively does that kind of shit is an asshole. I'm just gonna say,
your
if
friend. I only ever played with good friends, and I've never really played with.
Hey, just because he's your friend and you love him doesn't mean he can't be an asshole.
Do you have actual friends? Because that's what I was saying. You actual
I
friends really are assholes.
The Cavalier was that character who would lay down his cape for a lady, who would,
unless he was lawfully evil.
They couldn't start evil though, could they? They had to be.
I would say.
So they had to get to level 2 and then shift to lawful evil, so they go back to level 1 and then get back up to level 2.
I'd say that
if you wanted to,
would still do that just to keep up appearances because he's
but paladins can't.
Social
paladins
dynamics.
can't be lawful evil. Paladins can't be lawful evil. I'm talking about Cavaliers.
Cavalier.
I thought you said paladin. My bad.
I meant Cavalier. We're talking about Cavalier.
Oh, okay. That's fair.
If I said paladin, I misspoke.
Other good things I think that the Cavalier brought in. I liked the fact that Unearthed Arcana added in the social status mechanic. that was really in there to support the Cavalier class. Because when you created a Cavalier, you had to roll your social status to see what you began with. And the vast majority, assuming you're playing fairly, would begin at level 0.
Actually, be level -1 if you started the
-1,
lowest.
yes.
Yeah, you had to get to 0, then you get to 1.
Oh God, I hate level 0 so much.
But you still
that's okay. You'd be level -1 to start, so you have to earn 0.
No, I'm saying
So
I would just
DK.
say, look, you would start at level 1. I would just say start at level 1.
DK, imagine starting with a character with very limited resources, probably 5 or 6 hit points, a poor attack table to fight on, and yet you had to abide by the Cavaliers' social expectations.
Geek, I ran Line and Dragon for 2 years. That's what all my characters had to do.
Yeah,
they were all like that.
So what's the genuine chance of a fairly generated character reaching level 1?
Well, you needed 1500 XP.
How do you get 1500 XP having to be pretty much the first person into combat, the last person out of combat? You have to focus on the big boss guy the whole time. You couldn't flee.
Actually,
did that apply to 0 level guys? Because aren't you a squire?
You're squire, so you're actually
you're a support character.
You've got a 4th level cavalier who's doing all that for you while you're squiring.
I was gonna say you earn 1500 XP by being part of the party and just sitting back and holding horses while the rest of the party kills things. Therefore, you get part of the XP.
Certainly, if I'm DMing, I'm not going to give the party a freebie of having a 4th level cavalier leading a 0 level squire around. He's going to be earning his spurs alongside regular characters.
I'm just of the opinion that if a player earned the stats and wants to play a cavalier, I'm not going to force them to have to get up to 1st level to play the thing they want to play. That seems like a dickheaded.
I had fun doing it.
You're entitled to do that, but it's really fun. It'd be really fun to watch that player roll his social status, and unless he gets 87 or higher, he's a squire. But
it's one of the most famous
87 or higher, you start at level 1.
King Arthur started as a 0 level dude.
Exactly.
Yeah, but we're here to have fantasy adventure games. We're here to play fantasy adventure games, not mudcore, and I want my players to have fun.
Yeah,
you're trying to dictate fun.
But the powers that a cavalier got at 1st level were pretty good. There was pretty good reward. They got a favored weapon, which was combat bonuses with that favored weapon. They were great on horseback. They were immune to fear. They could fight below 0 hit points, continue fighting. And they got really good hit points. They effectively had 3d4 by the time they got to 1st level, having achieved it that way. And they were potent. They were potent warriors at 1st level. And then they just only got more and more potent as time went on. I would say a 6th or 7th level cavalier was about as good in combat as a typical 8th or 9th level fighter, simply because of the bonuses they got. And they got their the other things that they got. They had percentile dice rolled for their strength, dexterity, and constitution. And when they gained levels, they added to those percentiles. Now, some people have moaned about that, saying it was really, really overpowered. It wasn't. It amounted to roughly +1 in those 3 stats for every 10 levels of experience points. 10 levels of experience. And a cavalier had a very, very long way to go in terms of experience. They advanced very, very slowly.
Yeah.
I will say though, just to
they were
sign
still
up,
they were absolute juggernauts.
I don't use DCC anymore, and even when I did not use the funnels. I hated the funnels. They sucked.
Well, I don't like funnels because I don't like not committing to a character even from the lowest level. But I've run whole 0 level campaigns and
Well,
I've played 0 level characters.
The expectation is once you get through the funnels, you'll have
I
a
know what the
character worth
expectation
committing.
is. I know what the expectation is, but I feel like there's no point in making a bunch of disposable characters. You should just make a character that you want to play and see if you can get them through. You're going to more likely to have a character survive if you don't have the safety net of 5 characters, 4 characters, whatever.
Yeah. I think I'm no problem of making a multiple characters with the intention that there's at least a chance they'll survive. Well, and they are all at least first level.
I'm not a fan of DCC for a few reasons. The funnel is one of them. Again, it's just for me. It's like I have no problem playing a 0 level. I'm happy to play a 0 level character, go through the trials and tribulations, and feel that it's almost like playing the backstory of your character. So if you want to really get into a character and establish who they are, you play a little bit of their background.
Playing very low level, very weak characters is as far as I'm concerned, it's the best way of generating a background.
It's every Call of Cthulhu character.
Yeah. I will agree with that. Playing low level and getting to the higher levels is what makes the game really fun, I think. But,
yeah.
Anyway, sorry about that tangent.
Back
to the thing.
Now, the things I would criticize it for, it prompted the introduction of plate armor and field plate armor, which had damage absorption properties.
Yes. The Lindy Bages of the world are finally cheering that armor now absorbs damage. It just doesn't make you harder to hit.
And so it added that extra layer of crunch. Yes, it was expensive to fix, but you're looking at about 6th or 7th level. A Cavalier would probably have a suit of field plate by now, and a shield, probably a magic shield, and would have to have a dexterity bonus as well, in order to even be a Cavalier. Would probably have a dexterity bonus of 2 by now. So you're looking at about a -3, -4 armor class. They're going to have big hit points. They're big hit dice, and the ability to fight below 0. Thus, they were very, very potent. They were hard to hit. They could absorb the damage they were taking. They could deal out quite hefty damage because they had their favorite weapons. So they were all part of the power creep of AD&D. In fact, they pretty much typified it, in my opinion. And the introduction of the Cavalier was one of the reasons why I believe the fighters had weapon proficiency, weapon specialization to balance that out almost. Squirrel's right in that armor should be damage reduction, not harder to hit, but doesn't work. I don't think it works with the D&D system.
Yeah, you have to build it. I've tried to build that into AD&D.
That's what RuneQuest does,
or even into 5e and all of that, and any kind of massive restructure of the AC system.
The armor class
is just a rabbit hole. It wasn't worth going down, because then what am I going to do with all the monsters, and how do I interpret the damage reduction of dragon scales versus actual plate versus the height of a Sahagin?
Yeah, I'm saying like RuneQuest does that
because it's built with that.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, I agree with you. That's what I'm saying. If you want to play with a system that does that, play RuneQuest. But then you'd have to play RuneQuest.
Honestly, if you want a really good look at what happens when you try and build more realistic damage into an AD&D based system, look at Palladium.
Yeah, probably. But then again, you have to play Palladium.
Let's not divert too much into these other systems. But,
somewhere Saxius is punching the air.
He can punch all he wants.
Anyway, in one of my recent campaigns, there was a Cavalier, and he struggled through the early levels, but we got 2 against the Giants. In fact, I'm just going to backtrack a little bit. They played through Desert of Desolation, and I was playing the modules with magic items and treasure pretty much as written. I was having to add a little bit of monetary treasure to some of them in order to get them enough to train because Tracy Hickman didn't write according to the structure to allow for training. But I kept the magic items as they were because I was using item saves, and magic items were getting destroyed from time to time. And at the end, I believe it was I5, lost 2 of Martek. There's a shield +5. Was it shield +4? So this Cavalier had full plate armor, dexterity bonus of 2, and a shield +4 or 5. Going into the Lost Caverns of Sojkamp, battered his way through that, and then had it all completely blown off his body when the 2 creatures in the end encounter blew up with this positive and negative energy, and all his armor failed at saving throws, and he was left standing there naked in the final encounter.
Yeah.
So he bought himself new armor and was still extremely hard. We went into against the giants, and it showed just how powerful the Cavalier was when he challenged the Hill Giant Chief Nozenra to a duel and beat him in 2 rounds without even taking a single hit. That is how tough. And
he beat a giant.
The Hill Giant Chief in 2 rounds.
On his own.
On his own, yeah.
What level was he again?
8.
Okay, fuck the Cavalier.
I don't know. The 8th level is pretty tough in D&D, and a Hill Giant's not that powerful. Even
a ranger likely would have done the same.
Yeah, true.
Yeah, but that's only because rangers have like damage bonuses built into their class. They're doing like +8 damage every time they hit something.
But do you know what killed that Cavalier in the end?
He fell down a pit.
Saving throw versus poison. Like that's what kills everybody in the end.
Yep.
A deck of many things.
Oh, what was he hoping to draw from it? 3 wishes, a brand new retainer, some magic items.
Oh, I don't know. A deck of many things. I can't remember which card he drew. I think he might have had his soul pulled from his body and deposited on somewhere.
Yeah. Oh, that's the dungeon. That's the dungeon, I believe. Yeah.
That was Dungeon Land, EX1.
No. I mean, as in that's the card, the donjon.
Donjon, yeah. I think he drew the donjon.
Yeah. That'll do it.
So that did it. That did it for the Cavalier. So anyway, the only survivor of Dungeon Land was actually the Cavalier Squire.
I actually want to run Land Beyond the Magic Mirror at some point. I really do.
All I know is Cavaliers were tough enough to where when we did Temple of Elemental Evil, they kept pushing me practically a room ahead of the rest of the party.
Well, so you can absorb all the trap damage.
Yeah, and as a Cavalier, I really couldn't say no either. Because I can't stand there hiding behind the rest of the party. I'm like, all right,
what do you think I am? I cannot, for I am not a coward.
Well,
me.
Admittedly, we went in with an underpowered party with my Cavalier having a massive level advantage on the rest of the party. So I think they pretty much were hoping I would just soak everything.
Yeah, Kibachi Kid. Yeah, I can agree that having a print copy of the deck of many things would be kind of cool. But I don't know, I kind of like the. Well, one second.
I was using real playing cards for that.
Well, they do make them now.
They do make them. Yeah.
Yeah.
I have a Taroka deck from Curse of Strahd. Want to use that for regular, like to create tarot readings just for fun in the games.
Yeah, I mean, my party basically learned when the Mad Hatter offers to play cards with you, we refuse.
Yeah. I just think it's a bit more kind of quaint to play with the just a deck of cards. It's like it's being thrifty. I don't know. There's just some kind of charming about it.
Yeah.
But yeah, never play. Just if you meet it, like, because I did this once. I had a traveling guy who would like con the people out of money with playing card games, and eventually get to the point where he would just present them a deck of many things and just say, pick a card, any card, draw from the deck, have a good time. And that's it. It's like, there's one thing I learned from that NPC: never fuck with people who play cards on the side of the road. Just don't do it. Just never do it. The DM will fuck you over in the end with it.
So
And thusly,
about-
Geek Stream was demonetized.
Oh, it was demonetized like 30 minutes ago, dude. It was demonetized 30 minutes
anyway,
ago.
so the other thing the Cavalier did is it dragged in the Paladin.
Mm,
And the Paladin became a subclass of Cavalier.
And
my
super-
beloved
now-
holy boy.
Yeah, now impossible to qualify for.
Oh yeah,
Thanks for that.
Had 0.0001% chance of rolling the stats for it fairly.
Because they hybridize both the stat requirements into both
Yes.
both into the So I would just I'm just like at that point it's like
I think we didn't play with that. If you wanted to play a Paladin, we just used the old AD&D Paladin.
fighter. Yeah.
No, we used the old AD&D Paladin. And he wasn't. We didn't use him as a subclass of Cavalier.
I mean, like as in the old original fighter paladin, not the Cavalier paladin. Is what I meant to say.
Oh, okay, yeah.
You imagine all those Cavalier powers when you add in protection from evil, lay on hands, the ability to turn undead, bonuses to saves,
clerical spells,
Mhm.
and the Holy Avenger, and long swords are my favorite weapon. Oh, look at that! My family's ancestral weapon is a Holy Avenger. I'm gonna go quest for it. Yoink! And
well, knowing my group back in the day, we probably very much just treated them as separate classes. Because granted, that was a long time ago, but yeah, I don't think we ever played with Cavalier or Paladin as a subclass of Cavalier. In fact, up until getting involved with this stream, I had completely forgotten about that. So,
yeah, if I were to run AD&D with Unearthed Arcana, I would say, okay, if you want to play a Paladin, you can do it as a fighter. But if you qualify for a Paladin Cavalier, fine, you can play one. Just beware that I'm going to impose some heavy roleplay restrictions on you for doing so.
As you should with
any if at that point
class should have that.
I may even do the -1 level shit with it as well, to be honest.
I think that's necessary, and I think it adds to the game.
Probably.
I mean, the Cavalier in my game was a vassal to the Lord of Verberbonk because they'd started near Homlet.
Mm-hmm.
Thus, he was sent on his quests by him, and he had to be loyal to him.
I think that's
the thing that sucked about being a Cavalier, if your DM was so inclined, is you could have a lot of requests made to you by various nobles, even ones that weren't your lord, and still sort of be obligated to take them on. Or if the damsels came at you, then you're like, she gave me a handkerchief, I got to do it.
Yeah, the fair maiden is promised her hand in marriage, if only for one wedding gift. You free the land from the terrifying tyranny of that monstrous evil dragon in those mountains over yonder.
But if you want to look at it the other way, what an absolute mana from heaven tool for the DM to just come up with quests.
Twist your ball,
real quick.
Just have the Cavaliers.
Not messing with the Cavalier, but legitimate DM quest hooks. It makes it really easy because you got a Cavalier. He's kind of got to uphold the.
It's a class you're supposed to mess with.
Yeah.
That is, it's all part.
You have to do it.
Yeah, you have to do it. Yeah.
Yeah, but it makes it a nice tool for the DM.
I suppose the way
clerics and paladins are also the same way, though, because
I think what Elfbait is trying to say, he doesn't want it to be an antagonistic relationship between the DM and the player. Yeah.
Well, I'm saying it doesn't have to be. I mean,
that's
it doesn't have to be an antagonistic thing. It can be a completely constructive, cooperative thing. Not even cooperative. I mean, your DM doesn't have to ask your permission, but he's got a real good in route into to setting up quests.
Well, I would say it is in implicitly that the fact that the DM is giving you material and you are enacting with it is inherently a cooperative thing because you're both engaging with what I would loosely call a story, or an adventure.
I mean,
so
yeah. I mean, up into the point that D&D that's the base conceit of D&D. I'm just saying there doesn't need to be anything
yeah.
beyond that. I have a Cavalier. I'm playing a Cavalier. You are the DM. Look, here's an easy in route to quests. And
That's true.
Yeah.
I mean,
And-
just simply, literally, your high-end PC for the Cavalier could just be his wife telling him, "This is my land. Can you go make it safe?" And he's like, "Yeah, sure. That's what I do. I'm a Cavalier."
Much as I do dunk on the Cavalier because of the issues the class has, the existence of the Cavalier in that party created some really, really good moments, some really memorable moments. The party were completely overwhelmed by a group of Thrycreen at one point, which in AD&D they're tough, and
Those insectoid monsters from from Dark Sun, or is it somewhere else?
The Cavalier he took control of the battlefield. He spotted somewhere on the battlefield where the rest of the party could flee to. He covered their retreat, and then he held the mouth of the cave against the onrushing Thrycreen. And they say a Cavalier can't flee, but they don't. As people said, they don't have to be stupid about it. They can make a
strategic withdrawal, advancing to the rear.
He made a strategic withdrawal into the cave mouth and then held off the Thrycreen while the rest of the party were behind with spears going, "We're trying to help you. We're trying to help you." And it was really good because the Thrycreen were going to overwhelm them. And he made this stand and he was left absolutely bloodied and battered by the end of it. But it was a real heroic moment. So, and that's what they're there for. They're there for those moments.
Victor, God damn it! I was in a good mood, and then one D&D came up.
I don't talk about one D&D on this channel.
We don't like talking about Sauron. Invoking his name brings him closer to us. Didn't you know? Those Nazgul are after us.
Put up an image of a dumpster fire. That's our one D&D talk.
There you go. Yeah, I think that's being kind of generous, Sean. Don't you think?
Anyhow, so that was it. That was the impact the Cavalier had on AD&D. I'm sure there were other powers. It was brilliant on horseback with lances and all that sort of stuff, as you would expect. There were limits as to what the Cavalier could choose as their weapons of proficiency.
Yep.
But they still had a good. They couldn't use missile weapons. That was all.
Because it was considered dishonorable.
I think they could use javelins. Could they use javelins?
No, because I think it's just they couldn't make ranged attacks. So they could use them, but I don't know if they could use them as with their ranged quality. I don't think.
Omenel has returned. Let's talk to him about monks again.
Oh,
we finished the monks. We're on Cavaliers now, Omenel.
Well, I hope so. I was afraid you wouldn't finish off with them because really. Now, so you're on Cavaliers. Which edition?
First edition.
Oh,
we're almost done with first edition. We might be moving on to second soon.
Oh well, that's just a character kit again.
Yeah,
basically, yeah. Same with fifth ed. So
it was a fighter kit, wasn't it?
Yes, it was. Yeah, they got they could. I think they get bonuses versus dragons and fiends. They couldn't use ranged attacks.
I'm sorry. Well, we're still in first, right? I didn't want to get.
Yeah. Sorry. My brain. Yeah, I'm sorry.
I think we've kind of covered first.
Yeah,
we have.
Now, when you talk about that, do you include the drag? Where do you feel that the Dragonlance version of their knights were?
I'm not familiar with it off the top of my head.
Not enough. I don't know. I'm not familiar enough with those. I mean, if anything, they're a campaign specific thing. So
yeah,
yes, they are.
Although, I mean, they're also good fuel for making something similar to that in any campaign world, just like anything else in any other campaign setting. I know we had plenty of gladiators come into the game after they were published in Dark Sun.
I was looking for a complete fighter's handbook to look up the second edition Cavalier because I haven't played it, but I can't find it. So
I'm gonna mention one other thing is because we're talking about Cavaliers. Let's not forget the Green Book for Charlemagne's.
Yeah,
for the campaign setting. So there was that aspect too.
Yeah, it was all. I loved that one because it I almost feel like they thumb their nose at the Satanic Panic crowd with their write up on Christianity in there, because they're like Christian priests alignment any.
Well, but the other point is that you know, when you're looking at a lot of the green books, I thought were actually really well done if you wanted certain settings. I mean,
yes, I love
the Roman
feats from the Celt book, Troll Blood from the Viking book.
I like the Runecaster from the Viking book myself, because I like the runes better than actually magic users. Sorry, we
love
the actually derail it too much, but but I mean, really, you had what, Paladin and Fighter, and then they could take, well, technically anyone could take a kit, even if they weren't in that class.
But I mean, Sturm wasn't shown as being a Knight of Solamnia, was he, in the original Dragonlance?
Sturm was a fighter in the modules.
Yeah,
but that's because they didn't have the Dragonlance book until a couple years later. So yeah,
they still had Paladins. I mean, they could have, and they still had the Cavalier class out when the Dragonlance modules were printed.
Yeah, but Unearthed Arcana was in 1986,
85.
So it was a little bit after he had the Dragonlance, because Dragonlance modules what, 84 for the first one.
DL 1, 2, and 3, I believe, were 84.
Right. Yeah. So then also he's like, by the way, we're going to change the character class. Yeah. So,
I mean, for all we know, they might have. I mean, I can't remember. I used to have that whole run of modules back in the day, but they started adding a lot of source book material towards the end of it. I mean, the last few modules in that series were more source books than adventures, anyways.
Yeah, the DL 5 was a source book, and DL 15 and 16, I think, were collections of adventures and source book type stuff. And was it DL 10 or 11 that was a mass battle game?
Yeah.
So, I mean, the series was all over the place. It was a case of...
Yeah, go ahead. Well, I mean, they brought out, what was it, that Battle Master system and things like that. They wanted to support some of it. So,
well, the Dragonlance was a hot property, and they knew it, and they were going to go ahead and milk that one for all they could too. I mean, like 16 modules or something like that.
Well, and wasn't that their biggest seller for novels? I mean, it was insane to consider that they paid the writers $10,000 or whatever it was, and they made millions off of it.
But
and didn't invest it wisely.
Yes.
But so anyone played a Cavalier a kit in second edition? Anyone know much about it?
We tended to use the class even in second edition because the kit was just so blah.
Yeah, I had the option for the kit, but nobody ever took it when I ran second ed.
I played, since I played through Baldur's Gate, there was the Cavalier kit option. I played a bit of it. It seemed fine, but I didn't get high enough level where some of the more prominent features of the thing became more pronounced. So,
well, kits
take that for what you.
Kind of useful at the beginning, so it's not like you got stuff as you got higher levels a lot of times.
Well, I mean, the Cavalier got I do extra damage against dragons and fiends. I'm immune to poisons. I'm immune to morale, and I can't fail morale. I think it's also immune to fear and paralysis. That stuff just didn't come up often enough, given how early it was into the game. So
the mechanical options aside, here's the problem that I've noticed, at least in my games with my circles with the Cavalier, is it does require the role play aspect, does require that strict attitude. You have to be a knight. You have to be honorable. And most players, I have a few players who love the role play and will dive into anything, but most of them, they just want to be chaotic rogues, not rogue as in the class, but roguish type, the archetype. Where they can lip off the Lord if they want, because they want to be chaotic individuals. Basically.
So I mean, Cavaliers could change their alignment, could they? They lost a couple of abilities if they deviated from good.
And a level. Don't forget the level loss.
Well, that's for anybody if you change alignment. But
Yeah, that's what I mean. Yeah, but it's still applicable.
But what I'm saying though is nobody wants to commit to that level of role play where they have to maintain that honor. Everybody loves to just shed any pretense of civility and be the action hero who is beholden to no one.
Yeah,
and that's what I think more common.
Few folks like
The man
me
with
who
no
love
name.
playing that kind of stuff. You know,
They want to be like Clint Eastwood, the man with no name.
Yeah, or Wolverine, or somebody who gives the finger to authority. They don't want to be that authority.
I think that's where Oriental Adventures did everything right for having that honor system.
Well, remember they printed something like that for the Cavalier.
Well, they did something similar, but it wasn't integral.
It wasn't baked into the into the setting of like Greyhawk.
Yeah, that's what I mean. Is it the Oriental Adventures, everything was baked in where honor really mattered a lot more. And AD&D, it was really up to your DM on how much was baked in. So
I do remember the players in my Oriental Adventures campaigns really gamifying the honor rules, though. So like, I'm going to do something horrible honor wise, and then I'm going to go out and do a whole bunch of little minor positive honor things to make up for it.
That's like the interpretation. It's like the interpretation of true neutral being do good, then do evil, then do good, then do evil.
Exactly.
Playing Baldur's Gate, that's how you maintain neutrality in Baldur's Gate.
Yeah.
You murder a peasant occasionally.
Yeah.
Yeah. I know exactly what you're saying there, mages, but I mean, there are some people like me who loved it. I loved playing that limited character with the honor code, but that was just my idealistic little self of mine.
But actually, yeah, we're in the minority. Like, I love playing the flippant jackass, but I mean, like the structure. Like, it depends on what you're playing, but not a lot of players can commit to that. And I've seen players who try to do it and then just cannot. They find they cannot. They want to be smart ass, and they don't want to show deference to the Lord.
I mean, I literally encountered this when I played in Lords of Olympus like a couple days ago. Like, my character, he is a god of honor and integrity, and he loves humanity, but he hates playing the game. Like the game, like the backbiting and the negotiating and being. He especially hates it when people force him. Oh yeah, but that's what makes him interesting. That he is such a man committed to honesty and integrity. He literally got to the point where he was considering, largely this is also my impulsiveness. I hate it when
interviewing with other Pantheons.
Yeah, debatably. Yeah, he's thinking of just dissolving the whole thing and making it monotheistic. At that point, he's just like, fine, fuck this. Nobody gets to be a god, just me. But no, he just bucked it, and he was seriously considering a guy was going to use basically a gigaton nuclear bomb to just detonate a prison. He was like half tempted just to spite the guy, empower it and blow up the entire city just to kill him or just to spite him, because it wouldn't kill my character. He was seriously considering it because I'm a stubborn asshole and don't like my arm being twisted. I hate it when NPCs get one over me. I fucking hate it. But he relented because I know that's what he would do.
But the thing is that it makes sometimes a character interesting by giving those conflicts in there.
It does, yeah. But it doesn't mean I like it,
Well, as a player, you may not like it, but as a story, it really does make things.
Oh, it does, yeah.
Yeah.
That's what I'm referring to. I'm not saying. But
I'm just responding to Kabuki Kid. No, he's lawful badass, not lawful brutal.
Well, he's both.
He's lawful neutral, isn't he?
Because he's absolute law.
Yeah. Well, I've just
there's no pretense to really to morality for him. It's just law.
Well, I mean, he would consider upholding the society. Upholding the society
in the comic, he's busted people and thrown them in prison for possession of sugar, which is a controlled substance in Judge Dredd.
But that leads to like, that's an indulgence that they can't afford, so they're being wasteful. So in a way,
Well, it has
he's
nothing to do with it.
behaving.
No, it's a controlled substance because it makes kids hyper and unlawful.
Exactly. That. There you go. You just So
But,
by
then
that.
again, so are comic books. Dressing up as a superhero is vigilantism, even if you're not vigilante.
Yeah, but you're also again you're looking at this from our perspective of in.
Back to Cavalier.
Yeah.
Okay.
Judge
Fine.
Dredd is a sci-fi cavalier.
He's lawful.
Don't make me invoke my inner Sextus.
That's right.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, apparently I was about to say Omenel being the Saxius. How dare you, sir?
So where is Sextus tonight anyway?
I think he was working. I think he said he was working or something.
Working still.
Yeah, he said he couldn't
I
make
think
it.
so.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, it's
I
unfortunate.
haven't been in Discord, so not very often, not much today. So
Yeah, well, it's all good, man.
well,
We have an hour. We have like another hour and a half to go before Geek has to go.
Wait.
to sleep.
We're not even on Bard yet. We're not even on Bard yet.
No, we're doing all right. We're doing all right.
Well, and to be fair, what else is there to say about the Cavalier when you start going to like,
5th edition,
3rd edition? Because 2nd edition, it's a kit, which we've
There
all
was no
agreed with.
Cavalier in 3rd ed.
There's a 5th ed. There's a 5th ed one.
But is there?
It's 4th.
Yeah, it's a subclass of fighter from Xanathar's Guide to Everything. Yeah.
It's so bland in 5e. It's one of the worst.
Yeah, it's just a chart. It's basically opportunity attack machine. It's kind of
Something in 5e is bland? No.
It exists.
I know, right?
In 3rd ed, it was probably a prestige class, knowing 3rd ed, because everything was a prestige class.
It was probably called a knight. It was probably called a knight or a jouster. Or
it was probably called a cavalier because they want to have that nostalgic callback.
I'm going to say as something because not that I have the rules encyclopedia, but I haven't looked at it in 30 years. Was there a cavalier? Wasn't there a cavalier in the old rules encyclopedia?
I don't think so, but there was a monk.
There was also a paladin. There was a paladin as well, I think.
Yeah. In Rules Cyclopedia and Beckme, when you got to level 9, you could become a paladin, a knight, or an avenger based on your alignment.
Yeah.
Okay.
And so the knight would have been the cavalier equivalent.
So, but the knight would have been the neutral, correct? Yeah. I thought adventurous, chaotic, and obviously paladin's lawful. So, I think that probably covers the Cavalier. Now,
that's kind of sad, isn't it? Is that the Cavalier became this real powerhouse in 1E, and then it just kind of it didn't go out with a bang. It went out with a whimper.
It could be that a lot of people agreed with the common sentiment that it kind of infringed on the paladin and really didn't stand out on its own. So they're like, maybe it was just better off as a polished fighter.
I think they just had guidelines for being a knight.
And it overpowered the fighter as well. That was the other issue.
I think the kit version of it was essentially just a fighter with honor rules and some cavalry stuff tacked onto it.
Wait, was it
horse bonuses in D&D is absolute bullshit anyways, because how often are you ever going to be fighting on horseback?
Actually, question, is it a fighter? Is it a fighter kit or is it a paladin kit?
It's a fighter kit.
It's a fighter kit because I never bought the paladin kit
because it doesn't have any magic and
paladin. Oh, maybe that's just a Baldur's Gate thing where it's a paladin kit.
Well, you know what they did is if you ever noticed, some of them started repeating the same kits in different books.
Yeah. Right.
That goes back to the thing too, where like the whole barbarian book had like barbarian subclasses for all classes or kits for all classes, because they were treating barbarian as a cultural rather than a class, which is the good way to do it, because then you can have your shaman and your warrior and your totem fighter and all that. Anyways,
well, they even said in the originals it says, well, you can allow other classes to be this. You can get some weird things in there, but once they started going over the ranger subclass and all these others, there's only be 4 basic kits. That's it, because you got fire subclasses and stuff. But anyway, now we're on to the Bard.
The most infamous class in D&D history.
Right, Bard. The Bard class is
ultimate prestige class.
To say in AD&D, in terms of AD&D, it's unique in a number of ways. It's
not a dual class.
It breaks all the rules for dual classing, multi-classing. It's a prestige class, as already been said, and I believe it's the only class in D&D where the rules were so vague that in order to work out exactly what some of them meant, you had to refer to the Rogues Gallery.
Yep. I remember you doing that in the video on it. Yeah,
the video on it, yes.
Yeah, because didn't you notice that like in the Rogues Gallery there was some wonky thing about like levels and rogue abilities or something like that?
The way they described what fighter level you had to be and what thief level you had to be and whatever, it used quite non-specific language, and it wasn't till I read the Rogues Gallery that I realized that exactly what the wording meant and exactly whether or not the fighter and thief classes had to follow the idea that the second class had to be higher than the first class in the case of the bard or not. It's all these things regarding dual classing, because a character with two classes could only be human, and yet a bard could be half elven, who couldn't dual class according to the rules. So the only way, in my opinion, to make the first edition bard work was for the player to declare at the point of character creation that they're making a bard.
But that is the way it's supposed to be, because
it's supposed to be, yeah.
There are requirements. You can't just say, "Oh, I'm a fighter. Oh, I think I'll become a bard." And you can't do that. You have to start out
because you have to begin your training. You have to begin your training as if you were a bard. Yeah,
and
they're the hardest to acquire from.
And in that sense, I would then apply the armor and weapon limitations to them right from the get-go as a fighter.
But you would allow them to use their fighter abilities and thief abilities at the same time, correct?
Well, remember that bards have specific weapon and armor restrictions.
Yes.
Now I'm going to mention something here, because we're saying that, but when you're a fighter, you get that aspect. Then when you become a thief, you have to use a thief with none of the fighter abilities as a dual class. Yeah. And when you become
but they're not dual classing.
They're
not dual classing.
You're following the dual class rules.
You can't.
Yeah.
You can't. I don't think you can.
This is where the bard is wonky, because the bard has the rules. For example, it can only wear leather armor or magical chainmail. So because they're having to break the rules of multi-classing in order to become a bard, and thus they have to declare at first level they're going to be a bard, I would then say, right, during your fighter levels, you cannot wear whatever armor you like. You can't use shields. You're stuck with those bard
with
limits.
the bard restrictions. Exactly.
Well, see, I wouldn't do that. I would make them follow the fighter, and then when they go to the thief, they get the thief restrictions, and then when they go to the bard, only then can they go, because then they have to
use both. I mean, there is that's one where you could but then what about the half elf? Would you just say that they're multi-class fighter, fighter, thief?
No, you simply break the rule. You break the rule. They are dual class because they have chosen the bard. They're an exception to the normal rule.
Yeah, I would agree with Mage's musings on that, though in most cases I never knew anyone that really did that. The bard was one of those that you had to go 1st through 7th, and then you get back to 0, which means you can't use any of your fighter abilities for the thief until you get to at least the same level
higher,
7th level.
Actually, one passed. Yeah, one passed.
Well, it would be 5th. Technically, it could be.
No, for fighter, it's anywhere. It's no lower. It's no lower than 6th and no higher than 8th. And for thief, it's
5 to 7. 5 to 7 fighter level. Then
5 to 9.
7 to 9. 6 to 8, I believe, for the bard. It's 5 to 7 for the fighter, 6 to 8 for the thief.
Oh, yeah, that's right. You have to go. You have to go through. If you're treating like dual classing, you have to go one pass wherever you left off in the previous class.
I'm just looking for my Rogues Gallery just to confirm this, because this is all. If you look at the NPCs they've made up in the Rogues Gallery, it does confirm exactly.
Although this is the one I always prefer the weirdness of old school, but it is kind of clunky and hard to keep track of. It has a soul to it, in my opinion. It makes it just feel more charming than the later version.
The only real problem with it is there's no consistency across tables. Like I've looked at the bard and I know how I'd run it. So if you're at my table, it's like, okay, this is how it's being. There's no argument. And likewise,
Well,
Orman has just said he'd play it a different way. It's okay. If I play at his table, I accept his way.
You've read the rules and you made an interpretation on it. That's the ruling overrule mentality, which I completely agree with.
Yeah.
I just prefer the geek method. That would be how I would adjudicate it. But if I were at your table, Mage, that's how you adjudicate it, and I listen to you.
Yeah, so really it's 5th. It says event prior to attaining 8th level, they must change the class
to
7th. Thieves. Yeah, exactly. And then somewhere between 5th and 9th level of ability, bards must leave thieving, begin clerical studies as druids. But at the time, they're actually bards under druidic tutelage. They must always remain neutral. That's the one thing that has to be in there. There must be a
one aspect of neutral.
Yeah. They have to be chaotic neutral, neutral evil, neutral good, lawful neutral, or
aspected neutral.
True neutral. Yeah.
Okay, I've got Rogues Gallery open. I'm just going to confirm that level thing from here because the level was.
I haven't looked at Rogues Gallery in a while, but I remember looking through it, thinking none of these are by the book, or some of these are not by the book. Not none of them, but.
What page?
That's the other weird thing about
publication date on Rogues Gallery. Did it come out while they were still figuring everything out?
It was 1980.
Kind of the weird thing. This is kind of the weird thing I've noticed about old school D&D is that it's like you kind of have to read a lot of the other supplemental stuff to really get a grasp on some of the basic shit.
Well, and I'm looking at it right here. Let's see. Even though presentation is greatly modified from the original Bard class, it is offered as a supplemental to the system, and your DM will be the final arbiter as to the inclusion of bards in your campaign.
Yep.
Well, that's just the like in the afterward anyway, that the DM is the final arbiter of all rules.
Well, that's because the bard's in the appendix, anyways.
Yeah.
Okay, so if you
is it in the appendix? I thought it was
when you bring the Rogues Gallery into it, when you bring and use the Rogues Gallery to is fighter level is between 5 and 7, thief level is between 6 and 8, and the thief level does not have to exceed the fighter level because there are 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 example bards in there where the thief level is equal to the fighter level.
And you're right. Actually, I'm reading it right here. It says sometime between 5th and 9th.
Yeah. So 6 to 8. 6 to 8. Yeah.
Well, 6 to 8, but how I would normally do it is from that experience point, once you get to 5th, to the experience point right before you get to 9th. Yeah. So, I mean, I probably do. But I understand whether, you can read it either way. But you're right. So 5 through 7th for fighter. And then as soon as you make 6, so even if you're 7th level fighter, if you're 6th level thief, you can move over to bard.
Yeah.
So
that's fair. If that's what it says, then give players the option. Then they don't have to strictly adhere to the dual class rules because it's not strictly speaking a dual class. It just kind of borrows some of the mechanic.
Yeah. Well, if you want to make it easier, you can just say, for my own sanity, I'm going to use the template of dual classing just to make this easier, which are within your purview as a DM.
They begin play as fighters, must remain exclusively fighters until they've achieved this. So I would still treat him as a dual class in that aspect, and only then when they switch over. Now, to be fair, you also have to have, this is where they break the other part, is you would have to have, 17 to be a dual class?
You don't with a bard.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Well, because you've got the qualifier right at the beginning, which is 4 15s, which is hard enough.
But I would also do it this way. This is just in the way I would do it is, if you're going through a fighter, at some point you can find a tome or something like that to get those levels up, and then to get those stats up. So then you could switch over to thief. Then you could switch over to bard if you met all those other requirements.
Let's just agree that if we follow the rules as written, the bards break all the rules as written. Bards are rule breakers. It's just that's what they do.
Yeah, which is why they're relegated to the back of the book because they're such a wonky class.
Exactly. And that's probably where they should have stayed.
I've seen a lot of criticism that bards are overpowered, and I would argue no, they're not.
They're way too hard to qualify for one.
They're very hard to qualify for. They never get particularly good attack stats because they're limited to 7th level as a fighter. They can't ever get better than that. They will. How many bards are going to roll 4 15s and then have a spare 15 left for a constitution bonus?
Very few.
Yeah, I think this comes down to
Bleedingly
something
few.
that Mages has mentioned on a few classes, is that where that perception of being overpowered and stuff comes from is so many tables just waived the requirements for classes.
Yes.
And
But
sure, they're overpowered because if you can just play them whenever.
Yeah.
But Geek, you're forgetting the most important and most wonderful contribution to the game, Method 5.
So
every time without fail, every time.
Method 4,
I gotta come back on camera just to do this.
I had a character that I pulled up last couple of months ago that I could get. I got all the required stats for it. On the 4d6. Now if you're doing a 3d6, it makes it a whole other thing. But those are some of the things. I think the problem is that it's not everyone looked at, well, could I get those stats? The real problem is that people looked at the 23rd level bard, not what it took to get there.
Yeah. That's the same thing with modern D&D. They look at their build in a vacuum at 20th level rather than it's
the same thing with everything in D&D.
Yeah.
Since time Memoriam, it's
Memorial,
basically you can go in like.
I'm only attributing this to 5e because that's what I started with.
All rules have always had people who want to go ahead and examine them in a vacuum or based on edge cases. So
yeah,
and I'm not against edge cases. That the thing is that I don't know how you guys were when I was young. Oh well, you know what? You got plenty high stats. We'll just keep rolling until you get it. It's not like you rolled one character. That's your character. It's like roll until you
get what you want.
It's something playable. Yeah.
Oh yeah, and it's too easy to die. So have max hit points, and it's okay. So my max hit point bard, so 70 from the
I don't
fighter.
know how many people we ran into are like, oh, honest, I rolled these stats.
Yeah.
Well,
Yeah,
here's the problem I have, especially when you have automatic rollers. I'll roll 1,000 characters until I get what I want. So that's where it's like.
I actually did that one time for a 5e game.
It really sucks with auto rollers, like when you're doing Baldur's Gate and stuff like that, is getting too happy with that next button and having an awesome one pop up. You're like,
but here's the problem. But here's the problem. They rectify that in, I think, at least the enhanced version, where you can save a stat if it's really good, and then just keep rolling.
Yeah, but what I'm saying is you have to notice that it's there. Because if you're going next.
Yeah. Oh, if you just keep going, and you go,
there's the stat bar with 4 18s. You're like, no.
And or you get greedy. You get greedy thing. I have 3 18s. I could get a 4th. But then you get greedy.
Going click.
Yeah, I've done it. I did it
because you're so crestfallen. You're like, screw this game. It's stupid.
But that's the way some of these, when we're looking at these characters, a lot of it was done that way. Instead of saying, this is why, as I'm beginning to play, I'm like, hand me a character sheet. I will play what's there. Like you do with the one shots. I think the worst thing is where roll up your character for this one shot. Like, no, the DM should be handing you the character for the one shot because it's a one shot. No, give you 10 characters. Maybe you should give 10 or 15 characters. Like, here, pick one. But that way, you as the DM know what they have. You can make sure they have the right stats or spells or things that they can get through your adventure if they need them. They don't have to get the right or wrong aspect. There's nothing worse than finding out your character's like, well, if you just had knock, like, thanks.
So with the bard,
thanks,
back to bards. They were the original jack of all trades, clearly. And when I ran my party as a one shot through Tomb of Horrors, I put a bard in the party because they only had 4 or 5 players. So having that jack of all trades in there was ideal.
What level of bard was he?
I think it's something like 6, 7, 7. 6 fighter, 7 thief, 7 bard.
Huh.
So wasn't overly powered, but had a nice wide range of skills and abilities.
Do you still keep track? Do you still keep track of your previous levels when you're like you don't forget? Really?
You get the abilities, of course you do. Why go through them?
No,
once you're a bard, those are frozen, but you get all the bardic abilities.
But you still fight as per that fighter of level 6.
Oh, there's no like Oh yeah, there's no combat bonus. You base it entirely on the fighter, right?
The bard has its own experience tree and other abilities, but yeah, your other abilities are frozen.
Oh my god, they'd be terrible at hitting anything. That must suck.
Well,
they're not really supposed to be in there duking it out.
They were a jack of all trades. Yeah, they do a bit of combat, a bit of thief, a bit of spellcasting, a bit
lore,
of charming,
little knowledge stuff, sage keeping stuff like that.
Well, you got to figure
they were historians and storytellers,
And 7th level fighter is going to have a THAC0 base of 14, which is actually still pretty good. Assuming you're at that level, you're likely going to have magic weapons and armor, and so your magic weapons and possible strength bonuses. You're probably looking at an average of 12 or 11 THAC0. That's good.
That's not bad, actually. That's not bad.
I'm going to bring up one other thing, though, is you have to remember, as you're going through these experience points, is remember the experience points to go from 7th to 8th level almost double. So your thief will fly up those levels pretty quickly to catch up to the rest of the party. So your party's not as high of a level difference until you make it to the bard aspect, and then they're going to be 4 or 5 levels above you. I mean, that's what we're forgetting about a lot of this, because for a bard, it's what 300,000. I'm sorry, it's what 150,000 for a thief. For 150,000 for a thief, puts you at 11th level bard almost. So you're going to be flying up those levels, to get there. So the party's only like 3 or 4 levels above the bard. So you're not that far off.
Yeah, and you also have to look at the added value on the bard and of having all of those different abilities. That like yes, you're maybe a lower level, but what you can do. You're kind of
the backup
adds up to much more.
You're the backup thief. You're
the backup magic user.
Backup magic user.
And the 7th level bard will still hit as hard as generally your 10th or 11th level cleric. Because the cleric's only it's 2 every 3 levels. For the bonus. So a 10th level cleric is hitting like an 8th level fighter or 7th level fighter. So you're not that far off until this is again when we say, oh, you're looking at 20th level characters. Yeah, but generally the 14th levels when you're starting to fight gods based off of the that's where you're looking at some of this stuff. So I don't see that there's this huge power gap until you start getting to those 18th and 19th level where you're getting these 9th level spellcasters.
The main power gap with the bard would have come with, most people I know who made fighters would put their second best stat in constitution. That or dexterity. Constitution or dexterity. The bard, typically it would be their worst stat in constitution because of the dependence on all the other stats. So the biggest difference between the bard and the fighter, in addition to the fact that I would impose the armor limits, is the lack of hit points.
I'm going to bring up one other thing that we're talking about is as you get higher in levels, the assumption also is at some point you're going to get other magic items that will increase your constitution or your strength or some of these others.
Yeah, it's possible.
So
you've got a long way to go if you're starting with a constitution of 10 or 11, which is where a bard is likely to be.
It's a long way to go to rock and roll.
And you've got to survive those early levels with a low constitution, with a poor resurrection survival, poor system shock, and all that sort of stuff. So yeah, it's a long old journey. And then we went to second edition, the second edition bard, which
they're a rogue subtype.
Yeah, they were
rogue subtype.
Yeah.
And they attempted to make a jack of all trades character without going through all the multi-classing and what have you, and ended up with something that was, I'm going to say now, underpowered.
Well, second ed bards might as well have been called jesters because they're an absolute joke.
Yeah. Because their lore was abysmal. Their thief skill progression was atrocious. They didn't have much in the way of damage.
Well,
they didn't have good spells.
The other part about the bard though was, you actually had less skills, unlike the thief, to put some of your points.
That's what I mean.
And also the fact is that you start usually at that point you were kind of the backup thief anyway, so you put a lot into identify. You're doing some of that, and then you also
had lore,
and then you had spells. I mean, that's really what you were. Is you were a secondary spellcaster thief.
But your spells were very limited. You were,
Yes.
Yeah, it's like Spoonie once said when he was playing Tandem his bard, he was like, there was no wizards in his party when he played it, and he said I was the expert on arcane. It says by the way, he basically said if your bard is the leading expert on all things arcane, and that bard in question is Tandem the Spoonie, you're in for a bad time. So don't rely on your bard. At least in earlier editions, don't do it.
I don't think you're supposed to rely on your bard. Your bard is your backup.
Yeah.
But this is kind of more for the new schoolers, if any are listening, like who have seen what bards have become. Don't rely on your bard in old school. You are going to get wasted.
Well, but I mean, I don't know about it. I haven't really looked at the OSE stuff. As you start looking at it, they started getting the magic user spells, which were okay. I mean, they got like charm and things like that. They got the D6 hit points, so they were a little bit better than the fighters. They could wear better armor than the thieves, couldn't they?
Yeah, you could wear chain. You couldn't wear plate.
Yeah.
The OSE bard, it was sort of an attempt to overcompensate. Like they gave the ability to enchant, and if you enchanted them for 10 minutes, like they just stood there. If you entranced them for 10 minutes, you could actually charm them. So it was Gavin Norman's attempt to give them some bite. I think he went a little too far, but I'm not a huge fan of what he did with the OSE classes, advanced classes anyway.
So going back to
he
something
made the paladin like
DK was saying about, if you're relying on your bard to be the source of all your arcane lore in old school, that really comes down to your DM though, because there are no skills.
There's the lore thing, and there are the sages, and there's the identify spell kind of thing.
Yeah.
That's true, but those are spells, and I mean the DM could easily rule. Again, this is why it's a role-playing game. Your DM could easily sit there and say, "Well, this is storied. You remember a song. There was the tale of blah blah blah." And because
Alfamdaril, as Spoonie would have said, this is the blade of Alfamdaril. Just say Alfamdaril, and this is like a Vorpal blade.
I mean, honestly, if somebody was running a bard in my game and they'd gone through all the trouble to get to bard through all those classes, I'm not going to start dicking them around by punishing them and saying, "No, you're just a bard. You don't know that." I'm going to be more like, "Yeah, you're a bard. You know that. This temple is storied. This hero's tomb. Is there's tales. You're going to reward that guy if you're not a dick." So.
General Nuts, some would even argue, don't even need the thief. I am not one of them.
No, but the thief had other things. But yeah, I'm not disagreeing with General Nuts. There's a class below, and that's
Squirrel.
That,
me to bring out the
this is something I agree.
spell.
This is where I agree with 5e. Is I like the subclass. I just wish that they had made the subclass more of the old. Classes like
it's like paladin as a subclass of fighter yeah. I can see that. Yeah, it would make it a lot better.
That's why I wish that they had just kept it to the basic 4 classes, so people don't feel like they're all pigeonholed and everything. But anyway,
that's kind of what 2E was trying to do. If you think about it, I mean, they were really trying to clean it up and say we don't need 8 million classes. We can have 4 core classes and then have specialties and stuff. And kits,
yeah.
And I like.
But then the kits kind of went out of control, to be honest. After a while,
that was just quality control and
true
product bloat because they were just splat booking because they just wanted. They were in a serious money grab. I mean, honestly, they were sinking, trying to tie anything that would provide buoyancy to their company.
Whether that was the age of the Blooms or that was the age of Williams, I couldn't tell you. I would imagine
it was Williams, and they're trying to attach anything to D&D that could keep them afloat.
And when you start looking at the weird thing is that Basic outsold first and second edition.
Because Mistar is a good world.
No. What I meant was that it had everything you needed to play. But But I remember playing a bard, and I think we played a bard thief acrobat, which I know that YeOldeGeek's like, what? Yeah, that's what we did for the kit was a thief acrobat, and we actually had some fun with. Actually, I think we had 3 bards. Oddly enough, we had a drow and 2 halflings, and then we had the kits accordingly.
Would someone
yeah.
please read
Bard
verbatim
spell
the
is
charm
awesome
spell from AD&D?
AD&D, where
Right.
your intelligence determines
This
how
is a
long.
request because obviously Bard's charm was their sort of thing. Now, under the magic user spell, it does say refer to the druid spell, charm personal mammal.
And now druid, it
So
says refer to the magic user spell.
So I'm going to read the
Really?
druid. I'm
No.
going to read the druid version. The spell will affect any single person or mammal it is cast upon. Obviously, charm person is just person or relevant humanoid, which is listed in the magic section. The creature will then regard the druid, magic user, who casts the spell as a trusted friend and ally to be heeded and protected. The spell does not enable the druid to control the charmed creature as if it were an automaton, or automaton, however you want to pronounce it. But any word or action of the druid will be viewed in its most favorable way. Thus, a charmed creature would not obey a suicide command, but might believe the druid if assured that the only chance to save the druid's life is if the creature holds back an onrushing red dragon for just a round or two. Note that the spell does not empower the druid with linguistic capabilities beyond those he or she normally possesses. The duration of the spell is a function of the charmed creature's intelligence and is tied to the saving throw. The spell may be broken if the saving throw is made and it is checked on a periodic basis according to the creature's intelligence. And even if you're 18 intelligence, you check once every 2 days. Our average intelligence is once every 3 weeks.
Yeah, I mean, charm was very, and going back to 1E spells were very, very potent, which is why
Sleep, web, charm person. Don't take magic missile for the love of God. Oh, and light, please, for the love of God.
Magic missile's great. Magic missile's great when you get to about 5th level and you've got the multiple missiles. But lower levels, it is
magic missile might be your only option too. Remember, in first ed, you got to roll for.
Oh yeah, it's not like a cleric. It's not like a cleric where you just pick them. My bad. I keep forgetting that.
Well, and I don't remember what because I don't have my 2E book. What was the inspiration aspect of the bard in 2E?
You
they had
you could rally people if you spent 3 rounds prior to engaging in combat, rallying your allies against a foe that you know something about. So like you're being attacked by orcs, you could rally them by talking about the feat of orcs.
I've got a little story about that.
But yeah, then you get a +1 to your attack and morale. It's like a bless spell for 1 round for equal to the level of the bard. It's kind of gimped.
Not very potent until you get to a decent level. But Sinister Secret of Saltmarsh.
Your favorite module ever.
My favorite module, yes. And I allowed the 2nd edition bard to be used in that, and a player played one. And they got to the section of the module where they're rowing out to the boat, silently creeping up on the boat to try and board the smuggler's ship. And the player decided to use his bard's rallying ability. At that moment,
really,
he stood up in the boat and sang a song to rally his men. At which point the smuggler's ship hauled up the anchor and sailed away.
Jesus.
And thus they lost the module.
Wow. That was fucking smart, wasn't it?
No, it's not even slightly.
Well, I mean, you won. The bad guys are gone, I guess. Hooray!
No, they haven't won because they haven't stopped or broken the smuggling.
I know. I'm just being glib.
You don't get that delightful boat, which is worth a small fortune.
I was so glad that when I played the Ranger and Geeks game that we actually took the boat with no casualties. I don't know how we did it. I nearly died. I got to 1 hit point. I nearly fucking died.
Well,
we did it.
Well, it was awesome. Is that you don't get any of the other. You don't find out that they were giving to the lizard men. So you get nothing from that. So
yeah. I did get to -3 hit points against that fucking fire lizard you threw at us.
Which
Because like it wrapped around me. It wrapped around me and squeezed me, and I dropped to -3. I nearly died, dude.
That was Danger at Dunwater. That was the Panlong.
Oh yeah. My bad. Yeah.
Anyway.
Not dying.
So we had the first edition bard, which is a jack of all trades, the second edition bard, which was a master of nothing, and the third edition bard, which they turned into the sort of skill monkey type character.
Mm-hmm.
And around this time, isn't this when the trope about the bard seducing everything started creeping in?
I thought it was second edition actually where that kind of started.
I think it would have happened to anything that has the charm, because really bards. But the problem was that the bard took so long to get there. It didn't.
I never saw it. I never heard that trope at all until I came back to the hobby in 2011. 2012.
I don't remember when it started, but I seem to remember it's pretty old.
I remember
would
coming
say
in third ed because you had those the D20 skill checks, and then you would always roll the high number, as opposed to the old school. Even though the bards had high charisma, nobody ever used charisma properly.
Yeah, the whole I'm going to seduce the dragon kind of a thing.
Yeah, and then
I would.
rolling your D20.
We lost Omen, but no, I would say I think it probably did come from second ed, because second ed kind of, from what I've been told, moved away from dungeon delving and more into like grand epic storytelling and stuff like that. From what I can gather. Now it whether it started in second, it had, by the time third ed come, it had been, this trope had been solidified.
Yeah. I mean the second. The 2E. I think had some of that, because what else are you supposed to do? You're because they moved it to being more of a rake and a rogue rather than being in the classic
fighter.
sense of hey, this is someone that's more of like the seducer,
a lore master,
jumping out of windows, stuff like that. Instead of being the like first edition, it was the Celtic. Hey, you had to become a fighter. You had to do this. Took years and years.
You were a lore master, basically.
Yeah, Skald.
Yeah. You were a traveling storyteller. You picked up all these little snippets along the road.
But not just bounce around the interwebs seems to suggest the consensus is third edition. When the Horny Bards
all right, I'll concede that. But no, like the thing with the bard, it's not just that they were storytellers. It goes way beyond that. They were like they did this almost for religious purposes. They weren't just like telling, simple tales. These were recounting like chronicles and epics and stories of the gods. Like these were like
1E, and 2E kind of moved away from that.
Yeah, they did. Yeah. I'm talking about first
more of a cultural thing too, though, because a bard in
it's an Irish,
Celtic,
English, French,
and Celtic
Germanic
stuff is
thing.
going to be very different from, say, later medieval stuff, but they kind of both fulfill the same role, which is the lore keeper. Whether that's singing songs in a tavern or singing songs in an official capacity as a semi-holy man.
Yeah, well, they were like contracted by kings when they were semi-holy men. But but there's a digression. By the time we get to third edition,
contracted by kings too.
So. Yeah, but not for the same reason, because these were they were trying to recount tales of their ancestors and of their gods. Yeah, whereas the troubadour was just kind of like recounting battles that had happened in recent history,
or anything that there was a song about. If you really want to get down to it, I mean.
Well, let's just remember they consider Shakespeare a bard, which was very different from what we're talking about.
Yeah, but that's more for a reverential thing. They called him the bard out of respect for what, because he was recounting.
We're talking about a fantasy class that has multiple.
Yeah, that's true.
Multiple.
I'm not really. I'm just being pedantic more than anything else.
Well, then stop.
Yes, you
no.
Let's go.
I'm an autist.
Because you have to understand, at the time when the bard class was written, all of that shit was super old, and they probably pulled from all of it. I mean, damn, there's a Bowman in Tolkien named Bard. I mean, what does that have to do with it?
I think that. But Tolkien also ripped off from all the names from Beowulf. So I mean, I think he just pulled the name out of that.
I guess my point there is like, if you're going to talk about where it comes from,
you bring up a good point, Eli. I think we should add the ability to one-shot dragons with bows to all bard classes.
Absolutely,
that's what the dragon slaying bow is for.
Hey,
that's what the dragon slaying arrows. Yeah, I was supposed to say.
It's not a bow. It's a dragon slaying arrow.
Slaying arrow. My apologies. A dragon slaying arrow already exists. Yeah. That's what I was trying to say. Yeah.
Yeah.
But anyway, since we have firmly derailed, let's pull in our inner Saxius and bring this back. Yeah, let's bring it back to the third edition. The third edition Bard,
which was the Skill Monkey.
Yep.
The Skill Monkey. Yeah.
Seducer of Dragons.
Seducer, Dragons, and Skill Monkey.
The maker.
That's his
the
resume.
maker. Yeah, the maker of the Dragonborn, even though that came in a later edition. Pregnancy's a bitch.
No, that's the maker of the half dragon.
Yeah, true. Fair enough. Yeah, but that, yeah.
Okay, so I mean, of course, they're going through there with the bardic music, and you have a limited number per day.
But yeah, I mean, and 5th edition bards are really not much better. So
I can't really tell you what the difference is between the second. No, I'll ask you because we haven't mentioned it. You want to remember what the 4th edition bard was? I don't remember.
There's a giant there's a giant gap in my D&D memory about 4th edition, much akin to my mother's memory of the 60s.
I know nothing about the 4th edition bard, but I do know the 5th edition bard because it's the class I've played more than any other in 5th edition, and I've never played the horny bard in 5th edition. I play my most recent bard he was a bit of a charlatan, but he was a good-natured charlatan. And he would confuse and deceive. That was his approach. And he was he was in AD&D you had to have this neutral component to the alignment. He was Celtic good.
Yep.
I think an idea of a Celtic good bard is fine, because he's a bit of a rebellious good guy who's got a bit of a mischievous streak, doesn't abide by the rules, but doesn't want to hurt people. And that's the type of bard I like to play. And 5th edition has these backgrounds, and the background was charlatan. So
the only bard I ever played was kind of like the monk friar guy out of Dragonheart, kind of the storyteller, the pseudo, like para-religious guy. I just played him like that. He wasn't an instrument player. He was a poet and a scribe, and he knew things, and he walked around in a robe and didn't wear armor.
My bard's instrument was his voice, and yes, he was more of a storyteller than a musician. That was the idea, but he was collecting stories because he was low level.
I know somebody who played like a half-orc bard who was he was from an orc tribe, and he was weak because he was half-orc. So he did what a lot of weak folks in tribal societies do. They kind of become the shamans, and so his thing was chanting. He did big tribal chants. He was a
skald, basically.
Yeah, and so that was his character. He was a half-orc bard, and he's like, I chant the ancestral chants and blah blah blah, and so he would do a lot of foot stomping and hand clapping and chanting along rhythmically in the style, because he was playing that whole tribal orc thing.
I'm gonna, the thing is anyone that's played bards, did you enjoy playing them in whatever edition you played them in?
I unfortunately have not played a bard yet. So I've yet to play them, but I have seen and I've DM'd for a few bards and played alongside people who played bards. Yeah, they aren't fun to run for.
Well, everybody tries to play them like the rock star, right? Nobody wants to play the lore master who's there to collect information. Everybody wants to be the showman.
I would love to play a lore master bard, but that's just because I'm kind of a history buff.
The only bard I ever played, like I said, was that guy, and he was more of a lore master because that's what interests me.
Well, see, and I like the lore master stuff, and see, that's where we were talking about the green books. That's what I really love, like the Runecaster and stuff like that. The problem that I have in most cases for the Bard is I don't want to play a single Bard. I would rather play a multi-class. Well, third and fifth were different, but in the earlier system, in second edition, I'd rather play multi-classed Bard.
Like a fighter Bard or a cleric Bard or what?
Exactly. Just something different than just a pure straight
Bard.
And
or how about for extra flavor, a Druid Bard?
Well, you do this, so Manal, you start as a fighter, get to level 7, pick up a rogue.
makes me think that you're right, but I'm saying, but in most cases it was, like I said, halfling, as I would pick a multi-class Bard in in second edition.
I would actually, if I were running second ed, which I probably will never do, and someone actually came in with the mindset of like basically said, I want to play the old school Bard, I would actually, on some level, you like basically treat them as like the Uber Bard, or like call them a Feely to make it extra Irish. So you're a different kind of Bard. You're a Bard sung of in legends that most bards never see anymore because they thought we're all long dead and they're extra powerful. I'd actually like to do that. I think it'd be kind of funny.
Well, see, if you're going to do this and they're doing all the bad puns, the problem with the Bard is you tend to ride the horse, and not in the good way. No, so anyway.
Oh, why? Fuck you, Omen.
Hey, you need to tone down. Stop getting geek demonetized.
That's okay. YouTube already has an algorithm in place that if DK just shows up on the stream, just automatic demonetization.
Yeah, and also YouTube is stealing his money anyway, so he's relying on super chats. So
but I mean, ever since was it Gingerbeard screwed you with the card? Anyway,
we are.
Yeah. Sexist. See, I just have to laugh at that. It wasn't even the cursing. It was the
like there's an actual song that's called that card. It's like if you ever did a cover of that on YouTube,
turn of phrase. It's
I know. Yeah, it's like if you ever played that song in a cover and someone like recorded and put on YouTube.
The turn of phrase predates the man.
Yeah, I know. But dude, don't you know? He's the bad man.
All the Euchre and Bridge channels get demonetized, and they're like, "What the hell?"
Okay, speaking of, I'm going to mention this, just not to be political, but has anyone watched Barack Obama, Biden, and Trump playing D&D?
Yes, I watched those AI videos. They're so fucking funny. They're so stupid. I don't know why. I don't know why I find them funny.
I have not watched those, but I must say an amusing thing to watch was one of those try me kind of channels. They did senior citizens play D&D.
Oh,
that was hilarious because then they interviewed them afterwards, and they're like, "I can't wait to play again." Because they're totally getting into it. Like old, like Betty White aged senior citizens, right?
Hey, in a few years, we're going to be those people, okay?
Yes.
I still have a dream of a gamer's old folks home. With like in-house painters for your figures. Like the nurses and the staff. They've got an on-staff DM. They do shuttle bus rides to the local game stores and conventions.
You know what?
One sec. I was asked two questions. I want to ask in a sec. Just keep going.
Okay. Well, I heard that and I haven't checked downstairs from my library. They have the D&D books now. Of course, they're 5th edition, but they have the D&D books at my library. They have a veterans group that meets like at noon every week. There's a question like, that doesn't do me any good. I'm at work. But no, I have to laugh at all these things that have become normalized. And I'm going, you're laughing. Eli has a good point of, I can see that occurring. You just set up a group and they're like, oh no, everyone.
I guarantee you our generation's old folks home is going to have on that community board. Friday night is D&D night in the dinner hall.
One thing about old people playing D&D is they're going to have no issue shaking the dice.
Yeah, they'll have a hard time throwing it. But to answer Brian.
The problem
Brian-
is that they need those 50 millimeter dice that I have to see the numbers.
To see them, yeah.
Yes.
I'm just going to have my
Brian-
dentures forged out of D&D dice, and I'll just spit the dentures under the table when I need to roll.
Yeah. Brian asked me
Maybe
a
we can
question.
have a
Have I
die
heard a
roll
sword?
like that bingo collars. Yeah. I need
Yes,
a D20.
Brian. Yes, Brian James. I know of Sword and Caravan. I like it. I may run it someday. And L, I did not say Sealy. I said Feely with an F.
Okay.
I think I don't know. Actually, maybe Feely are what are called Irish kings. I don't.
And
remember
we all
off the
know
top of my
DK loves
head.
his F words.
Yes. Actually, you know what? I think it'd be
I was about to say another one, Sean. But I'm going to be a good boy.
We say that, Al.
Oh no! I was just mentioning that I think that it'd be kind of cool to have your Sealy and unsealy side for bards. But
Oh, no, it
anyway.
would be.
So,
It would be cool.
So I'm trying to think, are there any other weird classes that we have not touched on? Because I think that we've kind of beaten the bard to death.
We didn't do
there
the
was much,
fifth ed one.
there was much rejoicing that we've beaten the bard to death. So
Better
We
than
didn't do
beating him
much on
off.
the fifth ed one. We didn't do much of the fifth ed one, but most people watching this won't be watching for the fifth ed
Yeah.
stuff anyway. To be honest,
Well, you don't want to
but
get
no.
you want to cash in on that fifth 5e craze, geek.
The fifth ed bard is just more of the modern trope, though.
Yeah.
Yes.
They use their songs to activate abilities. Where
Well, I mean,
everything's bland.
there is technically, like, if you were saying there is a Sealy versus unsealy one, Omanel, there is the bard, like the College of Whispers, which kind of fills the unsealy bard notion. If you were interested,
I mean, I you got the College of Lore, which is kind of your insulting bard. You got your College of Valor.
That's the one
which
I played.
your
That's what I
Sorrow.
played.
there's the
Yeah.
College of Swords. Yeah,
Yeah, I mean, you've got some of these things, but I just feel that, as they went through, the bard just became meh. Unlike the first edition really had some flavor. Ignoring
It did.
how hard it was to get one, it really does provide a lot of interesting aspects if you're playing a druid, a monk, and a bard all together, because they do have such a
I was saying the same thing about the monk, but by the time they came to fifth ed, although it was clunky, well, maybe like a lot of people are, it was clunky, but the clunkiness is what made it stand out. It had the soul of someone who's just like, I'm just putting all the stuff I love about kung fu films and novels and all that into this thing because I like them. Now it's all kind of sanitized and just
You can
kind of
argue that with a
soulless.
lot of
Perfectly balanced
Yeah.
for
But
optimal gameplay.
that's such is life, though. I mean,
You
you
could
know,
argue
Yeah,
a
I
lot of
know.
AD&D classes. I mean, the AD&D druids, AD&D, even the cavaliers we talked about.
Yeah.
Yes, they've got all these drawbacks, but they've got that lovely flavour to them. Where
you know, I mean,
Yeah,
what
the paladin as well,
there are
especially.
so
I
many
love
things
the
you can
paladin.
make that same comment about.
I know.
though. As things go evolve and age and get refined and
Back in my
updated
day,
and stuff, they tend to lose a lot of what made them interesting in the first place, and that's
I'm just
yeah.
such
I'm
is
gonna say
life.
this- well, I'm going to say the same thing. Whether it's character races and things like that, is by putting everything in the initial book, it made it somehow less special. And to be fair, since players are buying the player's handbook, they tend to want to play whatever's in there. And by making it easy or accessible to everyone, and I'm not saying in a bad way, but by doing that, it removes both the rarity and the specialness of it.
I think the big thing there was dropping the restrictions and allowing pretty much anyone to be anything, and dropping the ability score restrictions. A lot of these classes we're discussing had these very difficult. They were difficult to qualify for, which meant when one of them cropped up in your party, they feel special, and a lot of that specialness of them has gone because of that.
What? No, was it method? I can't remember if we were looking at. Was it method 6 that allowed you to roll like 9 dice and
That's
get
5.
Yeah, and that was part of the. That's why I kind of wish that they had done it like they did. And to be fair, there are some areas I do like about 5th edition, where I kind of wish that they had made it up once, in not 3rd level, which is too soon to me. If they made it 5th or 7th level, where then you could go into the specialty classes, because then you would have known your class in and out, and then said, "Oh, cool, I can really get this stuff," and then you start really feeling it. That's the way I felt, is that sometimes they've made things such a low bar that
I think that's one of my biggest criticisms of 5th edition is too much of the power comes on too soon, and you advance. But that's just today's way of playing.
Yeah.
That's just the zeitgeist of the common era.
If you wanted to make an interesting parallel, look what they're trying to do with baseball. They're like, baseball's too long and slow. We got to shorten it. We got to speed it up.
Well, yeah. I mean,
I just that's the trend. It's like it's like people don't want to. I mean, and you can argue that destroys a lot of the spirit and the soul of baseball. Baseball is supposed to be about a slow, lazy day in the out in the sun, watching a game. Yes, that is absolutely the heart and soul of the game. But if you're trying to make a business out of baseball, heart and soul is going to be the first thing to go out the door in deference to profits.
They've already done that. They've already done that with cricket, with the T20 games, which are 2-hour games, when traditional cricket is played over 5 days.
I was expecting you to say it would last over 5 minutes, but no, they made it too short. God damn it!
I mean, while it does, and while that kind of stuff does kind of get my old man hackles up, at the same time, do I want that? Do I want to stick to traditionalism, or do I want to see things disappear and go away completely? No, I'd rather have them find ways to keep things alive.
Well, I'm going to mention this. As much we talk a slow burn, I've listened to several people talk about, which one of the reasons I used to start characters off at 3rd level later on, is because they've been through the 1st level over and over again. And you're like, this is tiring. Okay, everyone started
a lot of games at 4th and to 6th level, even in AD&D.
Yeah, well, that's what I mean. For AD&D, is there some of that in there? Well, I kind of like
Geek disapproving, that British disapproving head shake.
Well, you know what, El? I'm going to say this much: go to the miniature, go to other games. It's because I remember going to college games, and we have a minor league which is $5 to enter. For baseball, as much as everyone talks about everything, but but you know what? We have a variety of games, regardless of how we look at it. If I want to start, really brutal, basic or AD&D. If I want to start a little bit more superpowered, okay, we'll start 5th. Where you get the different power levels in there. There's so many games out there that are competing for all the time. I'm okay with it. It's
and also don't forget the value of having an easily accessible, shiny, bright, poster child for the hobby that then gets people in, and then they can sidestep and learn other games.
I will say I have no problem with them simplifying it. That's not my concern. What I have a problem with is just as the game progresses, it just turns into hollow member berries. That's what I think really kind of upsets me the most.
No, what's upsetting you is the member berries, man. Because honestly, the hollowness is only there because you have the member berries, dude.
True.
Well, I'm going to bring up one other thing. We're talking about member berries. I think part of it is, and this is the way I've been, is 5e acts as a gateway to other role-playing games.
Exactly.
So as much as people,
that's how I started. So
Well, I mean, but even my friends. Okay, after the OGL thing, they're willing to try other games. And I'm like, okay, it's not that you have to, everyone acts like it's either or. Hey, man, they still play 5e. They would still play, I think they are more willing to play some of the other games too. And you can play different. Now, I know that Eli and I are, we'll play different games, but even like YeOldeGeek, you play what, 5 different games right now?
He's going to start an OSC game, which I'm looking forward to playing in.
Omanel, are you by any chance lying on a bearskin rug? Because your pose suggests it.
No. This cheesy jazz music starts playing. You careless whispers over.
I think that, the what a lot of people may consider the sort of the craptastic RPGs in their mind is like you could equate it to food or beer or whatever. You're like sure, you start out with you start out in high school with the bud, and then later on you discover real beer.
Well, I'm going to mention one other thing though. As much as
But you can also enjoy Budweiser and still enjoy real beer is the thing.
But why would you enjoy beer at all? Beer is disgusting. Drink cider.
I think you just lost your citizenship, dude.
Dude, I drink cider. We don't drink beer over here often. We drink like stouts and ciders.
Okay, I'm going to mention one other thing though. Is the it's not that you can't get some of that old feel if you're willing to pull out the Dungeon Master's Guide. Yeah. And players are open for it. The problem that I've found is a lot of times players are just like, no, you can't change the healing rules.
My point is that tastes develop, and often a simple entry and a low entry point is a good way to get people to start tasting. I don't drink the lightweight beers anymore, and I'm really snooty when it comes to beer or cider and stuff nowadays. I mean, my personal philosophy is if I can see through it, I don't want to drink it. But and
you haven't tried Bulmers then, man. You have not tried a real cider.
Hold it.
I drink cider all the time, dude. I'm just not going to get into splitting hairs with you, man. Yeah. I'll sit there and sip Jaeger for that matter, but.
Well, but I think that's part of when we look at these things is I don't want to always remember, because I think going back, and I don't know how Eli's doing it, when I go back and reread the old rules, and I hear people talk about them, and we look at the little details, you begin to appreciate the design aspect and how things have evolved, and why have they evolved. In some cases, they're better. In some cases, they're worse.
Yeah, but I think like games that, because we have games like 5th edition, we are also getting games that evolve out of that. And I know we're way off topic at this point, but it's the end of the stream.
We're in ramble mode. I don't think we're good.
But like, if not for modern thinking and remembering back on old games, but kind of coming out of modern thinking, we wouldn't have nifty things like OSE, which is an old game polished and perfected into something more accessible, or we wouldn't see those games that come out that people really enjoy, like Shadow of the Demon Lord, which is really a
Swords and Wizardry.
Shadow of the Demon Lord is a mashup of Warhammer Fantasy Roleplay 5th edition and Chaosium stuff.
Monarchies of Mao.
That is the cat version of Pugmire.
Yes. So I mean, we're talking about this.
Wow.
It's 5e.
I like this one. I like this a little bit better than 5e, but it has a low barrier of entry.
Yeah, it's a lightweight 5e.
Yeah, exactly. And then this is a darker version.
Think about that, but
this is a darker version, which is another 5e, which was different, called Historia, where you get to play. Which I mean, I like the art, the dogs and stuff like that, and of course, you got the Necromancer pig. There's a lot of cool things I think about these, but we have as much people like, I'm not going to play 5e. Most of these games are modifications or improvements in some ways of D&D. I like how Monarchies of Mao does things for like feats and stuff. It makes it more interesting. Your characters are not going to be you can have the exact same class and they're going to have different abilities for their levels. Completely different abilities. Some may, like a spellcaster may not even have spells, but he may have other abilities in there, and the other guy's going all for spells. I think that's, as much as we knock the 5e, I think it's great to have some of these.
Like I maintain, and I've always said,
commenting. Sorry, but Brian James just made a comment about a lot of people wanting to take the plunge with OSE. And sometimes it just comes down to presenting an old idea in a better package
format. The one thing I've heard like a lot in some of the Discord servers I'm on, they seem to really, and it always irked me that they always like do they do the smooth braid emoji with layout over it whenever they talk about OSC. It's like they're basically mocking people who say I like OSC because of its layout, and they're mocking that because like. I don't know why, because they hate BX. They hate BX for one thing. Yeah, they hate BX for one thing. So they're already starting from a negative position, and then they hear that you're so smooth brained that you couldn't understand BX. It's like, dude, I don't know if you noticed this, but as much as we love Gygax and I will defend him to the day I die, he did not organize his books well. So you can like cut that elitist. Well, if you actually just read it properly, it's not that easy to read. And the only reason why you are able to read it well is because you had 3 decades of experience sifting through the esoteric.
BX is easy to understand, but there's no reason. There's no reason to run OSE down as a result of that, because
there's this overinflated false merit for somehow having to trudge through the knee-deep sludge of old school rules composition. It's the uphills both way in the snow barefoot is what it is.
Hey man, you're crapping over my one achievement in life. Lay off.
Well, but the thing is, though, I don't see you out there trying to make people feel bad for actually having an easier time of their games.
How many AD&D fans shill for Osric? Osric was a great way of presenting 1E.
My main reason for loving Swords and Wizardry over Osric is because it's a much simpler version of what I want. Like, literally, the only difference between OD&D from what I've seen AD&D is that just AD&D was a more cleaned up, more codified version of all the OD&D supplements with some tiny extra stuff added on. But I like OD&D.
Far from cleaned up and
I know, but I've read the 3 little brown booklets and the supplements compared to those. Yeah, I think
we've talked about this. There's a reason that D&D used to be a nerds game, like a real true nerds game.
Because it was appealed to war. Yeah, because it was appealed to war game.
Opaque. No, not because of that. It was so dense and opaque that you had to have that absolutely nerdy brain to even access it.
I'm going to bring up this part because I agree with you on that, but people forget, if you have to remember 400-page rules at 8-point font, that's, which is what Mage's Musings is doing, and I'm like, oh, thanks, Sean, you've done a lot for understanding some of the old rules, but that's a drudgery. Whereas, we're going to talk a little bit different. For Alien, I can pick that up in about 15, 20
5
minutes.
seconds.
What drags me into OSE, I'm just going to respond a little bit to Mobius's comment here, is I always say my game was AD&D, but I incorporated aspects of the combat from BX, BECME, whichever, in terms of movement to the battlefield and initiative and surprise and whatever.
And the segmented,
all that sort of stuff. And but all the classes, races, spells, and all the wording of those, and all the advancements and the class options and the stat modifiers and all those I pulled out of AD&D. Now, what I like about OSE is that advanced one, which blends what I see as some of the best bits of AD&D with the best part of basic D&D, which for me was the pure simplicity of the mechanics, all in one package. And yes, I've got the original books, but if I'm going to start running OSE soon, and I only need to have one little book by me while running the game.
Run the game.
Yeah.
And I probably won't even need that after the first few sessions because the mechanics are so simple to
and continuing to respond to his comment, yes, it's laid out better, big deal. But
that is a big deal.
That is a big deal. I mean, layout matters, and just because something was done, they did the best that they could at the time, but a better layout makes the game easier to use and more accessible.
I'm used to the layout of BX, so I have no use. Yeah, granted, you're used to it. Yeah. You're used to it, Mobius, but a new schooler might not be. That's the issue we're driving at. That's what we're driving at.
He wouldn't need to go out and buy the books if he was running a game, though, either, right?
Well, something here which we're all forgetting is getting new players in. Yes. You're lowering the barrier of entry because this is one of the reasons I like the little books for the OSE stuff.
Yeah.
Because guess what? Is I can keep the DM stuff on my side, and you can get the fantasy classic or the if you get advanced characters and stuff like that.
Here's the book with the character classes. I'm going to hold on to the other stuff, so you don't feel you're not presented with this mighty tome, which is intimidating to some people.
The other point is players. If you try to get them in a new system, you try getting them by a $50 book. That's a whole other thing to get them to invest. Whereas, guess what? I have these little books in here, and I say, you know what? Here you go. And the magic user, if you have the cleric and you have the magic user, they're not fighting over the book. There's like, hey, you look at one book, I'll look at the other one.
Yeah,
it's
really well done.
Hawkman
Really well done.
and Hawkman points out layout is why I love digital documents. Searchability is much better. Yes, that's another thing. I don't know, like searching for things. Yep, searchability is actually kind of a good thing.
I don't understand the resistance to the convenience of modern technology and modern layout. It's a weird.
I think I think it's a geek. I think Geek said it best. I think a lot of people in maybe not the majority of them, but a lot of them are undiagnosed people with autism. I think it's what I mean. No, because autists have and I'm not trying to be dismissive. I'm trying to diagnose what the problem.
I've got that resistance. I resist change. I resist people trying to tell me what to do. That exists. But I mean, Mobius is right. I mean, the red and blue books aren't
difficult.
They aren't difficult at all. But I said what I like about it is partly what people have been saying here about having different books for different things, so you can hand the books out. Yeah. But in terms of for me, it's just having that nice blend of basic and advanced, neatly packaged together, all in one place.
Yeah,
it's just that ease of use. I mean, okay, when I run AD&D, I'm at the stage now where I do rarely check the books because I've got my own way of running it and all of that. But
very true, Mazes.
I picked up OSE for the purpose of specifically running an OSE game. I want to run an OSE game. I've heard so much good about it, and I've been browsing the books.
I've played OSE. It's great,
and that neat layout, that easily digestible format. It makes me want to run it. I open a book and it just appeals in the sense its pure simplicity makes me want to run it and gives me the basic no nonsense tools. I can just go bang, off we go. It's ever so easy. And I don't have my old BX books anymore.
I have the basic and expert rules myself. They were generously gifted to me by my friend Robbie McHugh. And if he's listening, once again, thank you, Robbie, very much for that.
I'm going to bring up one other thing, though, is you're also probably playing with players that have played the same system over and over. And there is a sunk
cost fallacy.
Well, I'm not going to say it's a fallacy.
It's not a fallacy.
They have put so much time into there. And I know Eli and I probably look at this. Learning new systems takes a lot of effort and time, and trying to get everything in your mind is, if you're going to go through with it, what's the difference between different things? I mean,
different folks have different drains and requirements on their life, and that's I definitely don't play and pick up as many games nowadays as I did when I was 20.
I will tell you, it took me about 2 months to realize how the old school Vancian magic system worked, how spell slots worked back then. I did not know you could not put first level spells in second level slots until about 8 sessions into me playing OSE.
Okay, I'm going to bring up the other point is, do I expect players to buy this huge tome for Exalted to play a game?
No.
That is unrealistic. And if you're getting,
I've done it twice. I've done it twice as a player. No, as a player, because I refused to pirate things illegally, and the DM kept switching things after 2 or 3 sessions, so I had to keep doing this. And I'll tell you right now, spending 20 or 30 euro on a new system gets tiring real fucking fast.
I do want to say, nobody's slamming Mobius for his expertise.
No, we're not. We're not.
No, we're explaining why we like these. We like these because I can give this to a new player, and they're
and his knowledge of the game is cool, and it's earned, and it's something he's put through. Yeah. But I think it's unnecessary to expect other people to have to go through the same thing that you did to somehow. I mean, nobody's expecting somebody who's memorized BX to go out and grab OSE.
No.
And if you have the BX stuff, then you don't need to. However, seeing as they're not readily available, except for on you can get the print on demand, but they're not out there on shelves, and they're not in the current collective community, as they're not as buzzworthy, I guess. If you're trying to get people into it, OSE looks like a new game, a modern game, even though it is exactly an old game, and you're more likely to get people to interface with it than you are like, here's my old 3-ring punched, red and blue, pamphlets from back in the day that have the whole game split across 2 different books and constantly referenced back and forth amongst one another. I mean, just there's that, they were great when they came out. Again, it was the best that they could do at the time.
Well, it's.
Because they didn't know better. They didn't have 50 years of experience.
Well, we also forget BX was marketed to the masses. It was cheap. It was meant to be there. It was easy to. It had everything you needed.
It was for all ages. For all ages.
Well, no, it was like 10 or above. It's 10 plus.
Yeah,
but
10 and above.
But the point was that it was there. But as kids, we had one person buy the book, like Eli said. You kind of do it from memory and you go through with it. But if I'm getting new players that are in their 20s, I can't say, by the way, there's this great game. You have to go buy the books. You have to go read the PDF. You have to go do this. By the way, spend your 20 or 30 hours of your life trying to learn a new system that you may or may not like. It's like, no.
Yeah, that's why when I was trying to get back into OSR play, I went and gravitated to basic fantasy role play. Because everything is free. Like I went out and the books, the print ones are dirt cheap. So I'm like, if I'm going to get anybody into this, I can. I mean, while it wasn't my first choice of system, I'm like, if I'm going to get people to play and come to the table, here's free PDFs or at cost print stuff.
And players are much more likely to, if they really love it, they'll buy the nicer versions. To be fair, they'll buy collected stuff. But until they like it, man, you really want to make
nothing beats free.
Well, this is the reason I got the Conan, and I printed out everything. I put them in little 3-ring binders, and I gave it to the players. So guess what? They had all the rules. They had it nicely laid out. It was in color. That's what you want to do. Is you want that low barrier of entry where they're like, oh, I don't feel like I have to know everything right now. And I think that's part of the problem is that you as an old player, and I'm going to say this as anyone that says, look, I've been playing this for 40 years or 30 years or whatever it is. Like, okay, that's great. Now get someone new where they don't feel overwhelmed and they don't get the paralysis of too many choices. What do? Here's a simple version. Here, we're going to start first level. You learn very slowly for your character. Hey, this is what you're going to do. You slowly ease them into it. And, it's
it's just that barrier of entry.
Yep.
I will point out to Mobius, to be fair, I don't think nostalgia is the right word. I think because of how tainted that word, I'd say it's more, to be more optimistic too. I think it's just you're devoted to the system. And I admire when people are devoted to a system, even like real. Yeah, no, I know it does, but it's kind of nostalgia. Kind of seems a bit more irrational or derogatory when people say it. I've come to associate
this. You're too young to understand.
It depends on how it's used, man.
I'm 28 years old, geek. I can be nostalgic for things from my childhood.
Okay, 5 years older than my oldest child.
Wait, Omenal. Wait. Omenal, I thought you were like 35.
I'm 50 almost.
No, Omenal, sorry, I meant Elfbait.
I have a 23-year-old son.
Yeah. And Elfbait's
you look here like you're 35, dude.
I'm 51.
What?
Do you not see the white beard?
Dude, my brother. I would point out my brother is 40. Dude, my brother is 40. Okay, my sister is 35. Okay.
but they're probably like that hard-living Irish 40 and 35, aren't they?
They're not really. They're not really.
You're also looking at a 51-year-old who's never worked out in the sun. He's never drank to excess. He's never smoked. He's never done drugs. I'm sedentary and I eat a lot, but that's my only vice.
Okay. Well, I'm gonna bring.
Sorry. Okay, go on.
It's when we're talking about the player's handbook. The other problem is players have invested a lot in the 5e stuff, and as much as I know Elfbait and I were going back and forth about the OGL. My friend, after the OGL, suddenly became open, and his wife was the pivot because whatever game she was willing to play, the rest of the group's willing to play. And she was led to it. But after the OGL, she's like, "Oh, I'm willing to play other games," and that makes it a big difference. But getting someone away from something where they've invested hundreds of hours for, man, it is hard for them to let go. I mean, look at L. L only plays BX. Anyway.
And that's cool. I mean, if you're I'm never going to tell anybody they're wrong for being a one-game person.
Yeah, that's fine.
They're mono gamers, whereas I'm a polygamy gamer.
Yeah, when it comes to gaming, I'm pretty much a slut.
Yeah, exactly.
I am a D&D aficionado. I will play anything that any setting, any variation. That's why I like the OSR. As long as it's D&D, I don't care if it's slightly deviation, as long as it's D&D. But I may try Cthulhu once in a while.
No, I'm going to say this much: is the old BX stuff, and this is the great part about it is when you have
those shelves are my shame.
Your house is insanely huge, my dude. That's
his basement.
It's not. It's not. My house is small by American standards.
So the fishbowl effect with the camera.
But the Isle of Dread, I can play this with with Goodman Games. I can do this.
I really want to run Isle of Dread,
or I can do OSE. This is what's so great about having some of the stuff, and they are producing things with the Dungeon Crawl Classics. Looking at the books, I can play with the old BX or the old AD&D if I wanted to, without really modifying anything. That's what's so great about some of this stuff is you can go back and go look at these modules. There's nothing stopping you from using them in your BX game, even though they're for DCC. I'm
going to use the CC Lankmar stuff for my Swords and Wizard game eventually because I want to. It looks cool.
I adapted a 5th edition module, which was meant to accompany the 5th edition update of Keep on the Borderlands.
Oh, the Into the Borderlands by DCC, was it?
Yeah, and there was a 5th edition module that was designed to go with that, and then I retro converted it to Old School Essentials.
Beneath the Keep or whatever.
Beneath the Keep, yeah.
Well,
was that the Judges Guild thing from a couple of years ago?
No, Beneath the Keep is
the 5th edition fantasy adventure module.
Yeah.
That's set beneath the Keep of the Borderlands.
Yep.
I mean, these are things that we, while we talk about the old school, we have so much coming out now. We have better selection now than we did when Eli and I were kids, and like YeOldeGeek as well. I guess Sean, since we've all been playing 40 years plus,
longest career I've ever had.
Yeah. now to make money at it.
So
I have made exactly in gaming about $5,000 over my entire life.
No. The problem is how much you've spent to get that $5,000.
So, if you want to break down, about 370 of that was writing a very small gaming product for a friend of mine's company that never started, and then I also have a miniatures range. So over the 10 plus years that I've had that miniatures label, I have seen to my pocket about maybe $4,500.
That's not bad.
Living the dream, man. Living the dream.
Yeah, considering one miniatures release cost me $2,400, that's not a lot.
Just because it's kind of. Just want to know. So, because I'm so bad at ages, just kind of harp on me. Sean, how old are you? Do I dare ask?
In human or
rather
years?
Personal question.
Well, hey, it's fine to ask a man his age. It's just a lady her age. There's a difference. I'm not asking your wage. I'm not asking your wage.
So DK, just know, is ignoring you. I'm the youngest of the group.
So you're what, like 42?
I'm 49.
Aren't I just the oldest? Or,
No, I'm the oldest.
So you're 50.
oh no, yeah, you're 2 months older than me, aren't you?
Yes.
Well, you're the youngest of the group, not counting DK.
Well, okay,
Yeah,
okay. That's no. We're to be fair, you are a puppet, so you're probably only about 3 or 4 years old. So
There's about 2 years between all of us, so isn't there?
Yeah.
Apart from DK.
I mean, we're really.
well, there's
Yeah.
And you have to look at there is that nostalgic effect. I know that you came in later, which is great, and you actually represent what I think that we like that we can convert
Being an
5e
old
players
school
to other
player who's so young is awesome.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, I do think there's something to be said, like you said, and I've noticed a lot of younger players doing that is they want that excitement and that danger aspect that you're just not getting necessarily from 5e.
5. Yeah.
You know, that there's a gritty aspect that you go, okay, I've done this. Now, to be fair on this, and I'm not going to knock it, which I think is great, women have really gotten into 5e that they didn't in the other editions, which I'm kind of going, oh, man, you know, whatever. I was 20 years too late. But
Yeah. I mean, my oldest was playing Labyrinth Lord / AD&D before he started playing 5th edition. It's just 5th edition, because that's when I got him. When I started having him play, I was between 3rd. I was fed up with 3rd, and 5th hadn't come out, and so I had my AD&D stuff. I wasn't ready to give it to him, so I went and bought what was out at the time, which was Labyrinth Lord with the advanced supplement, and he played that for a bit. But for him, he's running into the same problem. It's like most people, you know, his age are, you know, wanting the easier accessibility of 5e.
And I think this
showing
is
up with a black and white old school style rule book in soft cover is not all that appealing to a lot of people. That's the other thing. I mean, you really have to think about is just what the books say to the brain of the consumer. You know, I would love new books done in that black and white style because I like that style. But to a lot of people, that's just low rent.
I'm going to say this much is when 2nd edition came out with all of the beautiful plates.
I hated the blue.
Well, no. I'm talking about where they had the plates in there.
Yeah.
You know that. I mean.
Yeah, but they ruined it with that stupid blue ink.
I didn't
they did that for photocopying. They did that to prevent photocopying. That's why.
Well, no, it wasn't. It didn't really work by that time.
Because it was too
Photocopying
dark
black
of a
and white.
blue. Anyways.
Yeah, really?
But you're right.
Oh, okay.
They did a lot of really cool plate, you know, art and stuff, and a lot of really good line art and stuff in the historical books, and I like that. But again, you know, they also then came out with the full color, you know, illustrated by Dieter Lisi and all of that stuff for 2nd edition as well, and that's where the change started. But you can't. It's hard to get people to access that you know, very plain, what they consider plain black and white. And to me, that was always great because it let your imagination kind of work a little bit more.
I'm going to mention that because we're talking. I know that the geeks are going to cut us off in here a second. This the 1st edition monster manual, which has a lot of crappy art. Still, I mean, look at
No.
Well,
no.
The Beholder has
There's a lot of shit-tastic art there, man.
Yeah. There's a lot.
Geek. First Ed has a lot of craptaculous art. I'm sorry, it does.
But here's
First
the
edition Monster Manual has a lot of very good art as well.
It does.
I know it does.
Yeah, it does. But remember, when that came out, there was no equivalent for that. And now you look at the 5th edition, and I'll bring this to the other point is if you don't have the funding to put into the art and the layout and everything else, then it makes me wonder: have you really tested this system? And that's some of what Eli's talking about with the brain. Is what do you mean you didn't spend time to do the layout? That should be one of the core things, especially nowadays where you can. And I've had several Kickstarters. They send the PDF out, and you can put in your feedback on all the corrections that need to be done. So there's no excuse for what's going on where you go, well, we messed up here. No, you had hundreds or thousands of proofreaders that had the PDFs
for free as well.
Went to print. Well, not for free because you kickstarted it, but you had.
Oh, that's true.
Yeah. Well, okay, you had proofreaders were free because they already kickstarted, but they can come back and say, hey, this needs to be corrected. You missed this on such and such. This doesn't make sense.
Yeah.
That's really brought down the cost of it. So now there's no excuse to have poorly edited.
Honestly, the cost of everything now is the art. Art is
Yes.
pretty expensive unless you are shortchanging
Even
your
public
artists.
or public domain.
Well, no, I mean you're not going to sell to a mainstream audience with a public domain art. You can.
Well, I mean, I would. Because it depends on the
but
stuff
how many
I'm going
copies do you
for.
want to sell? Do you want to?
Anyway,
have
we've
Well,
gone
speaking
past,
of which, because YeOldeGeek has talked
gone
about
past
things-
midnight.
Geek's trying to shut us down. He's got a
Midnight. Evil hat.
He's looking a little round and orange right now.
Hey, stop! I don't. We're not talking about that, but there's the line art in there, which is hard to see. Just it's dark and black, but you do get some of these aspects, which is what Eli's talking about. And I don't mind stuff like this. The same thing that happened with the vampire, where they had some of the good black and white art. But the writer is also the artist, and that cuts his cost down a lot. So.
I mean, I have written up about a full book of monsters. It's just that I know that it would never be worth trying to publish without art. And art's going to cost me minimum like $100 a picture.
As Geek said, it is midnight.
Yes.
Let's wrap this up.
Right. I'm going to do a little shill before we get into sort of closing it off. In that we have mentioned OSE, and I'm planning to run an OSE drop-in game on the Discord. Alternate Saturdays. It'll be initially in the slot we're currently playing Reign of Terror, because Reign of Terror, in which Omen Owl is playing and Slan's playing. Gingerbeard's not been online tonight, but he's also playing. We've got about an hour, maybe an hour and a half left of that for this Sunday. And as Slan has already mentioned, it could well be guillotining time for the poor characters. There are at least 2 potentially facing the guillotine in the final session. We'll have to see what happens. Slightly ironically, Omen Owl failed a constitution check, which meant his character collapsed of tiredness, which meant he didn't get to hear the music which has condemned Slan to his death, but which means Omen Owl's crippled old character, who is been trying to kill off, just won't die.
I mean, the first one I want to die a hero. The second one I was ready to die a hero. It's like, nope. Pressy's like, no, go on ahead. They're like, oh, okay.
Rolling a critical fail on that constitution check saved your life, didn't it?
Yeah, really? I know. But then he left me. He could have waited until I woke up, but no, he just I'll go ahead. Okay.
I'll go ahead. I'll go and do it all by myself. And
we'll see. You said it'll be about an hour and a half long, I think is what you said.
I reckon about an hour and a half. Yeah.
Okay.
And I don't know whether I'm going to run it the OSE from 2 till 6 my time, or I might shift it to a later time. It depends on who wants to play and what time suits. But because I don't, it's a Saturday when I don't work. That alternate Saturday.
Right.
And there are plenty of. It'll be a drop-in game just for whoever wants to play as and when. Traditional dungeon delving stuff that I'm writing, and maybe rotating DMs as well. We could also do that. I mean, that is something I'm planning. So if you want to be involved in that, just join the Discord and chime in the relevant section.
Well, see, General Nut, what I'm going to mention is we're saying an hour to hour and a half is for the final of Reign of Terror. That's what we're referring to. It's because we cut it because we were at the point where it's just easier to cut it than go for the extra hour and a half because we all had to go somewhere. But no, his normal games, to be fair on this, is I'm in Central Time Zone. They started at 8. We normally BS for about 10 or 15 minutes, and then we play until anywhere from 11 to noon, whenever it seemed like a good time to stop.
It's normally about 3.5 hours, isn't it? We're actually
Yeah.
playing for normally.
Yeah.
Last session was a little bit longer. We played on for about 4 hours last session because of where we were in the adventure. But there was just a bit too much to do to actually draw it to a close there. My dinner arrived. I think that people had to go out, so we had to cut it. So it was only about an hour and a half left. But
so that's what's going on. I highly recommend, going with John. John's a lot of fun to play with. He gets a certain deviousness whenever you play. That's he does great.
Everyone, I will always remember John, the holy water sprinkler.
yes.
So to be fair, the last episode I think we took a break for like half an hour somewhere in the middle doing all sorts of other weird stuff. Anyway, but no, I highly recommend anyone that does want to play. John's a great DM. Go for it. It's a lot of fun. Every so often he'll stutter or stop. That's the only negative. It's he'll have to reboot his computer every so often. But that's
this thing.
Oh, okay. And that's about it. Other than that, anyone that likes OSE, go for it. I think you'll have a lot of fun. Yep, and Grumpy Old Sland is the other person. We've played Gingerbeard. Anyone that plays with Gingerbeard will really laugh their head off. So,
yeah, I've had the luxury of having both of them as players. I can vouch for this. They are wonderful people.
So that's a game will be, and so likely a week on Saturday we'll be starting that. So pop into Discord and just mention your whether you're interested or not. And I think it's time for people to shill their channels and stuff. So we have been experimenting tonight with Elfbait streaming tonight's discussion to his own channel.
Yeah, I did discover that it does not communicate the comments from your chat over to mine. So there's a lot of really one-sided responses from me because it's not showing all of the dialogue that came with that. So, yeah.
Okay. Oh,
yeah,
well.
so Slen double dipping, putting one cut and paste from geeks to elves, so it would be in both. But they all do show up in the private chat in the Streamyards or in the comments in the Streamyards.
Yeah.
And I do apologize if I've been a little bit tired on tonight's stream. It's because I have had to do quite a few extra shifts at work this week. I normally have Monday and Tuesday off, but I've had to cover for my colleague who had a bereavement at the weekend. So that's why I'm just a little bit. I've got a half day tomorrow. I've got a bit of a break tomorrow, and then 4 days off from Saturday. So that's gonna be when my break comes in. But so Elfbait's got a channel. My co-worker's
the same name.
Yes. Yeah, my co-worker's fine. It was actually I will say it was her son that just basically discovered his grandmother deceased at the weekend.
Oh wow!
That's what happened.
Ooh.
So she's been having to support her son. The son was staying with his grandmother for the weekend, and his grandmother passed away on the Sunday morning. So that's a horrible. Anyway,
Yeah.
on a happier note, I think we've got some videos coming from Major's Musing, haven't we? Very soon.
We do. I had a little bit of a snag this weekend because I've been learning Final Cut Pro, upgrading from iMovie. So there's a bit of a learning curve there, and some time spent Googling how do I do this in the Final Cut Pro. There's enough overlap with iMovie that it's not bad. So I've got a rough cut. Of my newest video, which hopefully tomorrow or Friday should be live. I have to go over the sound and film the puppetry, which I always do last to insert it.
Right.
So you'll have to let us know how Final Cut Pro works for you.
I'm liking it. I'll probably subscribe to it, but I'm still more of a learning curve. Still got to figure out all the little nuances and the fun things I can do. But just having more transitions and titles is immensely huge and fun. So,
good. So all that remains really for now is to thank the four of you for joining me on the stream tonight. Elfbait, DK, Omanal, Mage, thank you all, and thank you everybody in chat for contributing. It's been a good series of videos, a good series of discussions we've had on the classes. I'm going to come up with some new topics now. put the pressure on me. But
make sure to have them like done about 5 weeks in advance.
About 5 weeks in advance. Yeah.
Otherwise, Axios will just get on your case about it, man.
Yeah. Yes. And hopefully we're going to play some Shadow of the Demon Lord tomorrow night. I hope so. No, Gingerbeard can't
Enjoy.
make it. It's just me and Nut, I think. But cheers all. Thank you for taking part, and I'll see you again on Friday.
Good night, everyone.
Night, folks.
Bye-bye.